do want to see that gold stack pop, though. Come on, we can do it. Oh, he's inferior. Oh, he still might kill them all.
Oh, he might do a lot more than that. I think, honestly, people undersell how good Stimmed Mavericks with Madrigals in that Furia mode can be. But you can see it is way too much Zerg. And even though he gets pretty close to killing everything but the Lake is been his nightmare this whole time. GG, first game to Crank. Anfield's trying to protect those Madrigals. This is a great pullback to a much more defensive position. It's not an arc, it's just a straight line. The Lake is being individually microed right now by Krankendau just to try to get them to the top of that cliff.
But he's in a tiny ball.
Oh my god. What a brilliant surround from Crank. Evocative just reminds me of yesterday.
Here we go. He's going in for it.
Yep, the drop's coming in.
Position is the blackjack.
Oh, yeah.
Get that armor.
Not doing it. Instead, he's going after the enemy phalanx. The one's on the high ground, but there's nothing left here for Aoud.
Can he get that crucial armor against the blackjacks? But he's already in firing position. He's going to focus down the
Big stuns. One from Dog and one from Aoud helping out. Dematerializing. Oh my lord. Shopkeeper Dog is cracked. Drops are earmarked for it. Oh, they're not even unloading Neblime. No, they've all gone down without unloading a single blackjack.
Oh my god, no. He's going to just make the entire ground down and take them out of control. He's got almost double the workers.
Yeah, he does.
He's not going to go up slow.
The Dog Horizon. Well, hold on. He's going to try to just clear the ground army, and the Madrigals were deployed instead of shooting at the air stack, so that ends up being a big whiff. But here's the Malks clearing out the skies, or at least trying to. They do so much splash damage, but I don't know if there's enough support. Coming in by a string, I mean, the Madrigal's still trying to do some crowd control, but the Gorgons are very well split for Mr. Aoud. He is ransacking the Gorgon count on the other side, but it is not going to be enough.
Here we go. He's going in for the big push.
Hold on, he's taking a moment. He's taking his hands off the keyboard. Aoud 64 completes the reverse sweep. You know what time it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is Cosmonarchy time, and I am so very excited to bring you guys Elimination 4. That's right, not Elimination 2 or 3 or even 1, but 4. That's correct. We've got a very exciting slew of games, and I'm expecting at least 4, if not 5, in this best of 5. Krankendau has defeated Top Ramen 3-0. He's got his ZVT practice in. Aoud 64, reigning champion, cast down to the lower bracket by Hit 'em Up, who made it all the way to the grand final through that upper bracket, but also has only really had a scarce few moments to practice versus Zerg, and those practice partners were in his official games versus Jack Yelansky. Didn't get a chance to do too much versus Hit 'em Up Zerg. He did take one game when it showed up in their 5-game set in the semifinals, but is that a replicable one? It is indeed on Brainstorm, so I'm expecting that map to feature into the pool. Guys, we are going to have a grand fanfare on our hands here. Just waiting for our players to pop into their map veto and get things crack-a-lackin', but I hope that you guys are looking forward to it. And of course, I will be bringing you the veto play-by-play as it comes up. Now, we don't have the technology to show that visually yet. That would be something that would require probably it being done through a customized client that I could just stream to you guys or something. Instead, we just have this nifty little website we're borrowing from an Age of Empires pro scene, which is hilarious to me. But here we go, guys. We're talking about Elimination 4. And I was expecting to do the lower final right after Elimination 4, but due to European time zones existing and scheduling, we are going to have to reconsider that one. So here's the plan, because we've got a couple of different plans here. Okay, if we get the lower final of Hamster versus Krankendau, the rematch from yesteryear, and also the rematch from the semifinals number 2, where Hamster 3-1'd him. Krankendau and Hamster will duke it out in the around 11 o'clock in the morning in Eastern time. So that will be an early start to our brigade on the final day of the Throneroom Stage. If Ayud64 beats the odds and Krankendau in the process, we will have to participate in the lower final and the grand final consecutively, like back to back. And by that I mean it's going to have to be a later time for the lower final. It'll be around 5 o'clock Eastern time in the afternoon, and the grand final will happen with maybe a half an hour break so that whoever ends up winning that between Ayud and Hamster in that situation can proceed. So we're either starting pretty early or we're starting a little bit on the later side. But the show match will be going live at the same time either way, 1 p.m. Eastern time. You don't want to miss it. I will keep everything under wraps for everybody who isn't a donor until, well, the actual day of. No leaking in the chat. I better not see any discussion of the show match. But we will see. We will see how this one works. Glad you guys liked the intro. European time zones indeed. Yeah, big gur. Got to tag Krankendau. He's doing last minute practice, maybe some meditations, maybe doing some push-ups. I should do some push-ups, but we're not doing those right this moment. I guess I could. You know, why not? Get some good chest pumps. Now, if we're talking about the veto while we wait for Krankendau to arrive, as Ayud has already checked in, there's Crank, actually. They seem to be getting ready for it, although Ayud also had to take a BRB moment. So we're just waiting on our reigning champ to come on in, but we can talk about odds. We can also talk about maps. I was really thinking quite a bit about this veto, and I do think that it's going to be a good time. I really feel like Brainstorm is the map, right? Krankendau has the veto advantage. So we have kicked things off. He's deciding on his ban. And sometimes I also read into like how soon people lock in a pick. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. So Krankendau vetoes Brainstorm. Normally, Krankendau vetoes Serenity. I don't think Ayud wants to play Serenity as much. He has won versus Zergs in the past on this map, but let's see what ends up occurring. Ayud decides to veto Mass Destruction. That opens up a lot of maps, actually, for Krankendau to pick. He could go Check Stealer if he wants something more open and for Spawn. If he wants something a little bit more in the middle, he could maybe lean more towards Crisis Vector. Maybe, one of those 4-spawn maps like Blackwater Bastion could be a good one as well. That's like a fairly standard one. He ends up picking Radium, which doesn't surprise us too much. That was his starter versus Top Ramen. And despite early aggression from Ramen, it wasn't enough to break him. So I suppose if we're reading in the history, that's our source of the tea leaves. That does make a lot of sense to me. We'll have to wait for Ayud to select and lock in his first map pick. Now he has Serenity if he wants to go for something like that. Instead, he opts for Kingwa Valley. So we have the both of the 1500 mineral field maps are going to be the selection here, which is very, very interesting indeed. I want to know exactly what we're getting ourselves into, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be an interesting time. All right, Near Impact has been vetoed by Krankendau, which does make sense versus Terran. I love the way that Crank has played the veto so far, and Ayud vetoing Check Stealer, that's a big move at the end. If he didn't do that, I think, Blackwater Bastion is probably going to be inevitable in this series. But there's a couple of different things that we can see out of Crank. If he picks Crisis Vector, it's kind of a mirror of what he did versus Top Ramen. If he decides to go something more along the lines of a... No, it's Blackwater Bastion. Yeah, okay, that was my next guess, is that he would probably want to opt for that early on. Kingwa, I'm struggling to see what Ayud might end up doing on the map like that, but if we go beyond Blackwater, Serenity is map 4, and Crisis Vector will decide things. So that is an interesting setup of maps. So again, it is Radium, Kingwa Valley, Blackwater Bastion, Serenity, and Crisis Vector, which means we have 4 Biddy B maps with some Jujic assistance on the decor, of course, and Crisis Vector if we end up needing it. Pretty funny stuff. I do think that this is going to be a That's a pretty solid example of veto elegance, because the way that Crank gets rid of Brainstorm and just goes straight to Radium, he's okay to fight Aoud on Serenity by comparison. Although it's not a bad map for Aoud, it's not a bad map for Terran in any matchup. But I think Aoud has not really played on it that much, and when he played on it, it was kind of before Hit 'em Up showed the Phalanx strategy in the pit. So that's kind of the way that ends up going on. So, Map Monarch indeed. Let's take a moment to see if Aoud is ready to participate in a little cheeky interview. And I'll see if I can't tag him in and ask him if he is ready. We'll get his thoughts on how that veto went and how he's feeling in general, because it has been quite the journey for him. We are now about to listen in on the thoughts of Aoud64, reigning champion, and looking for that throne another time. Aoud, you've locked in your top 4, so at least you'll be invited to the next one, but I know you want more than that. Now Krankendau stands in your way. How are you feeling ahead of this set and after that map veto?
To be participating in the tournament and to have make it this far. I think I get along with Crank pretty well. We practice a lot. Well, not lately because of schedule differences, but we usually, have these sessions of practice games, and I think we get along pretty good. So I'm just glad that he's my opponent, even though if I lose here, all my energy and hopes is gonna go to him, because I believe that he can take the whole series, and I seriously hope so.
Yeah.
But yeah, for this moment, for these games, I think that anybody could take the games, the series.
I have a lot of questions about the veto, but I'm going to start off with just an acknowledgement that you guys are both members of No GG, finding yourselves having to take each other out. And the other 2 members left in the tournament are clan ass members. So very interesting, because on the one hand, you got those who don't like the Shambler, and on the other hand, you got those who are just trying not to type GG. And I used to think it's kind of funny, because so many of the players in No GG, and now I guess I would say all of the players in No GG, typically do type GG, but there's a deeper meaning behind No GG. It means, you win. You don't type GG. You win. The other guy types it, and then he's out. He leaves before you even have a chance to respond. No need to type it, right? That's the real inspiration, I think.
No, I think it was mainly because there are certain members of the Cosmonarchy community that for some reason they just don't accept that they can't lose. Even if their opponent is on their eyes inferior. And they just leave, the game without typing GG. I think that's uncalled for. That's not polite. Even though if you are the better player, you should set an example, and do the right thing. It's not gonna hurt anybody to type GG, to acknowledge that for that game in particular, the opponent did better. So that's why it's a reminder for those players that. It's a good thing to be polite from time to time.
Just every now and then, right? Just occasionally.
Yeah,
I dig that.
That.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this map veto then, Aoud, because I am looking at the fact that he banned Brainstorm, and I do think that is that one sucks a little bit. Obviously, he's probably listening and taking notes, as Krankendau often does. There's a reason he doesn't do these interviews himself before the broadcast.
Yeah.
But without necessarily putting too fine a point on it, we can talk a little bit at least about the Brainstorm veto. I'm speculating you wanted to first pick that. It was interesting when you pivoted to Kingwa instead, when that was taken out of the picture. I'm sure you have your reasons for that as well. But Krankendau usually first bans Serenity versus Terrans, and maybe in general, as it is a close, very, very close map. But he specifically targeted you, it feels like, by vetoing Brainstorm, knowing that you first picked it every other opportunity you had. So is that, kind of an expected play there? Did you expect to be able to play Brainstorm in the series, or did you predict it would be vetoed?
Yeah, I was expecting to play Brainstorm because I believe that I have a pretty strong push early game with Terran there. Maybe because of the short distance between bases. And I think Crank he studied the games against hit 'em up for this particular reason. Maybe he didn't want to be worried about that strategy in particular. So I'm figuring that he banned Brainstorm because of that. But I certainly wanted to play that map very much because I practice on that map a lot. I think I'm the only one that does it, so that is one more reason to pick the map. But well, it's not gonna work this time.
Yeah, indeed. I saw that you end up vetoing Mass Destruction and then later Check Stealer. I suppose most of the 4-spawn maps you're probably not super happy with playing versus Zerg, but Blackwater Bastion leaking through, it seems inevitable really at the end of the day that that map like that would come on through. So for any of these maps you're looking at thinking, oh man, I really wish that hadn't been it, anything you want to share on the maps that did make it in?
Well, yeah, I mean, Mass Destruction, I just hate the map. I explained it, the last interview. Check Stealer, I think it's a Zerg map. I don't know, I just find so difficult for me to win against Zerg on that map because they have like these free bases, and everybody knows that Zerg with a lot of gas is pretty dangerous, especially when they can macro as they want, as much as they want.
Yeah.
So yeah, Blackwater Bastion, I think, I didn't want to play that map in particular. I don't know. I think it opens up for longer games, and I believe Crank has probably the strongest, mid to long game of everybody, in the community. So I'm kind of worried of that map, but I'm just gonna try to play, my game, trying to apply specific tactics for each map that I have prepared. So. Yeah, let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes indeed. I am looking forward to this one. I do agree with your assessment that either of you could win. I can't imagine this being any less than 4 games. I really don't think we're going to see another 3-0 from his side, and I don't think it'll be a 3-0 for your side. One of my last questions here is off the back of your victory over Dog, which did require you to do a reverse sweep. We didn't linger on that point too much in the time for the exit interview there, but I think it bears opening up here, at least as a brief discussion point. Having had to go down 0-2 and then come back, especially in that particular matchup, you were the favorite, maybe a heavy favorite. I feel like there's not really a maximum pressure moment than that, right? And so obviously it gets a lot easier when you score 2 wins in a row, and then all the pressure's on him to avoid being reverse swept, all of the opportunities, all the chances flashing before his eyes. But when you're down 0-2 like that, you obviously had to tap into your mental fortitude, and you did call that out in the exit interview, saying that you're usually pretty good with the mind. But does that mean that there's not nearly as much pressure going on into this game? Do you feel like now you've proven to yourself as well as everybody watching that even if you start off 0-2, it's still winnable?
Well, I have always believed that I'm kind of a late bloomer, like at the first games, I believe that I tend to play more relaxed in a way that maybe I'm not I'm not spamming movement. My fingers are still kind of slow. Like I take some time to adapt and maybe to perform at my fullest potential. So I believe the worse situation I'm in, the better I play. Maybe that's why. I mean, I felt when I was 0-2 against Dog, I felt that third game I was like, okay, you need to focus, and I certainly felt the adrenaline rush. I was like playing faster, trying to do these drops here and there, trying to occupy more the map. Like playing the game the way it should be played. So I believe that maybe for this series it's gonna be the same. I'm gonna start slow probably, and eventually the more games I play, the better I get, because I also try to that like quote unquote download my opponent. So if they don't have like many strategies or many tactics, maybe I can figure out what they are doing, and I'm pretty much able to apply a counter right in the moment, So I have confidence in my mental fortitude, and the mechanical strength will come after. So yeah.
Fair enough, Ayud. I thank you for your insights ahead of the match. I will take a brief moment to intro you and your opponent a little bit more thoroughly on the stream, so maybe about a 5 or so minute little ado before we actually get rolling. But I will host the lobby for you guys, and I will issue the little notice I always say at the end of these interviews. If you have any other thoughts you want to share, any final words before this confrontation to decide who faces off against Hamster tomorrow, let it be heard.
Well, I just wanted to thank the people that is supporting this tournament and the community in general that is going to watch the tourneys, and they are present every day. And also thank you for the ones that support and want me to win. So yeah, I just shout out to those people.
Shout out indeed. All right, well, we're going to shout you out at the end, win or lose. Good luck, Ayud, and I'm sure we'll be seeing some exciting games come soon.
Thank you. GG's.
GG's. Y'all know that we always like to have a little bit of a moment where we're playing off the tunes, and that's exactly what this moment is for Ayud64, the reigning champion. And he's got his little Rhapsody of Fire track going on, cooking. I don't know if you guys know this, but the album art is pretty nice, like a dragon breathing ice fire or something. Maybe holy fire, as he is the chosen one, the champion, the Magister with the crown. Well, Magister's a Protoss unit. No Protoss in sight, because it's all TVZ today. And honestly, Ayud does stand a reasonable chance of, as he said, blooming late into the series. It's hard to call him and say, oh yeah, this is over, call the series, it's all done, it's all wrapped up. Even if we end up going down 0-2 in the opening, he drops his own map pick and the first of Cranks, and we go to Blackwater Bastion feeling like Ayud is down and out on a map that he's not favored in. You never know what the man from Venezuela is going to be doing. I am thinking pretty hard about this series. I've been expecting that this one's gonna be a banger, so I say we just about get ready for it. And that means we gotta talk a little bit about his opponent. Krankendau has been the most successful Acropolis debutant, period. But I will say, if you count Ascension in that mix, the only one better than him was Hamster, who debuted in Ascension 6, got to the grand final through the upper bracket. It was shocking. Dealt with Neblime in the semis and Shambler in the upper final, only for Mystery Meat to make the Murderer's Row run and bop him 4-0. He never quite recovered from that, even though he got very, very close to defeating Neblime in the grand finals of Ascension 7. And since then, we really haven't seen a debutant nearly as good. But Krankendau could be that debutant by placement, and I'll say is that debutant already by skill. A player that really has a lot cooking, a lot going on with him. And I want to see more, damn it. Maybe we'll see exactly what we're up to as we wait for our players to ascend the throne and get into the lobby. The other thing that's always worth pointing out here is how hard the run has been. And if either of these two players win this tournament or even get to the grand final, you gotta say, you gotta respect the run. First place in their groups, sure, but they defeated their opponents in the quarterfinals with relative ease. They obviously ended up struggling in the semis, mirroring their run so far, and then they were able to dispense with their initial challengers in the third round of the elimination set to find each other here at last. So, no matter who wins here, it is well deserved, and there is certainly a heavy amount of pressure, I think, on both of these players, but maybe a little bit less than yesterday, when losing meant that they had to go all the way through the qualification stages yet again for Acropolis 4 and get through the Ascosi wasteland. The Lithuanian Lakizalisk is burrowed and awaiting his opponent. Let's see if we can make it happen. And while we do wait for that last little moment here, see if we can't nudge Crank. Let him know. Let him know what's going on. Glad I see Latin in the chat. I feel like overall, Krankendau is the favorite. You have to hand it to him. You have to say he's going to take this. But is it going to be 3-1? Is it going to be 3-2? I mean, if you ask Crank, he'd love it to be 3-0. But I don't think it's going to be so easy for such a thing. Got our players exchanging niceties in the lobby here. And we are just about ready to get things going. Radium is our starter. Reminder, we go to Kingwa and Blackwater, and if we need more maps than 3, Serenity Map 4, Crisis Vector Map 5 Decider. This one will be a banger. This one will be very, very solid. R for Radium, Krankendau is locked in, and he's even changed his name from 1.9 to 2.0. The subtlety. Ayud locks it in as well. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Elimination 4. It's time to get crazy with it. Krankendau in the top right, rocking out as the Dark Sapphire? No, Yimin Blue Zerg. Never would have guessed. Ayud Beaster Brown. Consistent as always. Top 4 in both of his Acropolises, but he was the winner last time, and it feels like the crown is so far away now this time. Does look like it'll be a mech opener this time around for Ayud. Pool first for Crank, but he's got his gas started. Got some people in the chat trying to figure out what exactly is going to go down. What the hell? Okay, sorry guys. I was trying to figure out some Twitch UI to see if I could set up predictions, but sadly, it seems a bit scuffed. Double Folk opener. I think this is actually going to be a Vulture Rush. So what you'll see out of this situation here is Crank is going to have his units up pretty early to deny the scouting. And he's going to use the Zetracores to scout afterwards. But, you know, when you see the Larvosk pop as the pool units come in here, you're going to be pretty sure that it is indeed stock standard here. Mason trying to dance around. Quazov been setting up for a defensive play. Crank has a lot of experience reposting these kinds of assaults from Terrans, but it has been a while since it's occurred like this with the Vulture opener. A lot of this stuff I've seen in practice games, and Crank always seems to be able to bust out without taking too many losses. Maybe there's going to be some other kind of reaction here from Ayud. He has a Palladium and a Scrapyard coming. Definitely a little bit of a different look. Maybe an early Madrigal or early Phalanx in the cards. Very technical opener, right? Only goes for 4 Vultures. Clearly doubling down on military early on. Doesn't want Crank to get ahead in any way. Vornath very quickly here for Crank. I'm guessing he's going to go for a lot of Vorvs early on and see what that happens. See if that works out. And it is indeed a Madrigal early, so you can tell Aoud is trying to set up a very successful containment. He's got Blackjacks as well, and it looks like he'll expand behind it. So, I mean, it's an interesting build. I haven't seen something quite like this. But the 8 Vorvicors that are being generated here feel like it's going to be a little bit too much. He's got more mines that he can lay as layers, which might be absolutely necessary here. And it almost kind of baits out the way Crank is actually walking right into it, not realizing that there's more mines where that came from. But again, the Madrigal's actually back home for a defense, so if he can clear a lot of the Vorvicors before they can actually get across the map using that Vulture Micro, it really takes the teeth out of this push. And only now is Crank making Droleth, so we know that this rush, if you will, is going to be a little bit more on the over side. I think there's like 1 or 2... Yeah, there's 2 mines left with these Vultures. We'll see. Yeah, he is going to go ahead and lay them on the other side. Another Madrigal on the way. Great mine defenses. Clears everything and even puts down a stockade just to help things out after the fact. 1 lone Vorvicor left alive. Well, there's actually a couple, but the Mecha Army is going the other direction here. This 1 Vulture even kind of slowing things down a little bit. Setting up the hatch about halfway complete. We've got a couple more Vorvs that have been managed to get birthed in the meanwhile, and the Zorka Shroud's about halfway complete. A mine earlier on, making a lot of issues right now for Krankendau, but he goes for the surround, and the Vorvs are going to be trying to focus down the Madrigal immediately. One gets down, the other one's still good for quite a lot of power, but remember, it's all on its lonesome right now, and only 1 lonely Blackjack made it across the map. It's going to have to tuck tail. Very difficult situation there if Aoud wants to keep up the aggression. It doesn't seem possible with... Well, the Vorv wasn't really being microed, so otherwise maybe that Madrigal could have been bopped. Back at home, he's got 1 lonely lobotomy mine, a Hurakan out in front, very few units, an overextension perhaps, and that is not a great mine hit at the end of the day. Unit's still kind of posturing. He has a decent number of Quas, but I really don't think he's going to be able to do much of anything. The Mason's preemptively pulling. Poor Ahmed. Slaughtered already. The Stockade lifts. The Ministry also lifts. I don't know what these Masons are doing then. Here's an Anseal. It feels like Aoud might be struggling a little bit when it comes to the micro. Flummoxed by the early push. He's so far ahead economically, but now with no mining going on at his natural, he's going to need to change that up a little bit. He did end up reinvesting into Vultures, and he has 2 more Folks, but it does feel like he's going to need a little bit more than that. 3 Lake is on the way. As long as these Zerg units don't really get much of anything done in the interim, I don't think that there's any chance of a counter push. I mean, you got to remember that the Lakes are here, but look at the fact that Aoud already has his Anseal out. He's got his Star Pad ready to go. I mean, that's good scouting for Crank. He certainly defangs the aggressive position here. But the Terran didn't lose too many units on the other side, so it does feel like we are going to be in a position where he can keep stacking up those tech units, the Madrigals in particular. 1 Palladium going down. I'm guessing there's going to be another one. He is adding a Cyclops to the mix. I don't know how many of those he'll be going for at the end of the day. If he ever ends up going for a Vestry on the Stockade, you could absolutely see that working wonders. One of these mines may end up getting triggered by an, errant unit movement. Well-placed static defense setup. Zorka's Shroud. There's that mine hit. And we have a ridge cap coming in for the main base here. So the sieve will be filtering out, adding a little bit extra resources for Aoud's Vespian harvests. The map is covered in little blue dots. Krankendau trying to make sure he's good to go on the vision. As a reminder, this is a 1500 mineral map, so the main bases are already a little bit mined, a little bit depleted. We're seeing a little bit, I guess more than 50% of the way mined out already. Expect them to deplete around the 12 to 13 minute mark on average. So scarce few time here for either player to expand. Crank certainly is better equipped to do so, but a lake is getting popped for free is not really what he wants. Oh, a second one going down. There's a couple of other Zorka's units here, including a Gorgokor. Oh no, he's going to lose a third. Yeah, there's not so many Lakes left on the front line. And this is the danger, because Crank was making a couple more workers. He was taking that worker advantage, but this mech army just forces him to flip the script. And if he pounces, Aoud that is, before these Lakes hatch, if he can get into a good enough position to force an uncanny fight, the Terran can win from here. Another ministry going down. You can tell Aoud is feeling a little bit of that pressure to expand his economy earlier. That's a fine way to play at this point. You've forced your opponent to spend what they could have spent on expansions instead on more military units, and obviously delaying their tier 2 is a very important task as well. Crank knows that, but he also knows that if he doesn't make units there, he could just get run over if the attack does commence, and maybe it would have happened even if the attack did commence. Look at this. We've got 5 Madrigals, 4 Phalanxes. If Aoud has the wherewithal, has the freedom to put down his army early on, we are golden. Atlas already on the way, a 2-base tech rush with the 3rd base about to finish here on Aoud's side. Does he want to go for 6 o'clock? It's hard to tell which one is actually more defensible, because he's got all these mines here. I'm going to guess he's going to just take the normal 3rd base. But those mines could easily be eaten up, gobbled up before our very eyes. Plenty of Lakes coming in on a bit of a stream. And the ministry coming on over as well is going to make it obvious here. Crank's own 3rd base is just about ready to pop, but he doesn't have that much of a worker advantage, and there's a preemptive transfer from Aoud. He gets started on harvesting from the Vespene. You can tell Crank is setting up for a tier 2 switch of his own. That could make his Gorgs and his Zoryus a lot more valuable, because then he can turn them straight into the tier 2 varieties. Sometimes you evolve your node at tier 2 based on what you still have from previous engagements. Like if you've got a lot of quas already made, the actuation time of going for the pond there is way, way easier, right? The Kalkir Lake looms. But he has spent a little bit of money on more Gorgs, trying to take 12 o'clock at the same time. Tier 2 starting to turn. I think what we're seeing here is Aoud either needs to force a couple of bases down from Crank's side. He needs to kill 12 o'clock, maybe the 3rd. Or he's going to need to really gun for an extra base himself. And it's just going to be a little bit too difficult for him to do that. Now look at the mine placement earlier on. We talked about Terran starting to switch into Vultures again in the mid-game, and Aoud has been a main proponent of it. And now Crank is kind of caught in the middle of the map, as Aoud is slow crawling his way with the Phalanxes and the Madrigals, just making sure that he doesn't get jumped on by some big surround. Now he takes his, sort of hands off of the army for a moment. Starting to leapfrog him forward again, but he's macroing up. He's grabbing his Tinkerer Tower back at home. All his captaincies in the natural does mean that he can spend a little bit more time, a little bit less walking time, I should say. All right. Krankendau is starting to get pressured a little bit. The Ancial protecting a little bit from that circuit, but here comes the attack from 2 sides. It's not an ideal split here for Krankendau, but a lot of Aoud's army isn't actually fighting, and the Madrigals are so far back, he's going to end up clearing the deck on this west side, but the east, the north, it's going to be a real heavy dive here for Krankendau, and it does look like the detection is still alive for just a moment. That was a sloppy, staggered fight, and the Madrigal's not actually ambulating here. They are sticking around and just trying to range everything down. It's not ideal as Crank overcommits, not realizing just how far back the siege line went. And even though that Ancial didn't shield that much damage, even though so many of the Terran's units ended up dying, a lot of it was that expendable tier 1 chaff. Yeah, a lot of the Palladium units ended up going. But we do have tier 2 starting up. We've got Strigas coming in by the trio. A couple Vultures come on in as well, and the Lake is trying to get burrowed, but there's still Phalanxes where that came from. And they are ranging things down. The Striga is taking forever to be brought down. Here it comes with a lot of very, very wounded Lakers, but is it going to be enough to actually... Oh, yeah, they all go down. But it might just be enough for the rest of those melee units to push in. And Tier 2 only now starting for Crank. He's got nothing else in the pipeline here, starting a ton of Lakers. He's pushed Ayud's position further back. He has not saturated 12 o'clock. 11 Lakizilisks on the way. If Ayud doesn't have enough of that mid-range and long-range backline, you know, this is a spot where I do think you can get a lot of mileage out of something like mantle units. More consistent damage output, but does take a transition. Instead, it's going to be 2 starports up here in the main base. This entrenched position has been pushed back so deep, and so many more Lakers. Even at Tier 2, about to pop, he's still just making Lakizilisks. I think we've seen Zobrialisks only once, and it was from Hit 'em Up in Check Stealer. It was a really funny ZVZ match. Very entertaining with like 25 minutes deep versus Hamster. I don't think that's in the cards now that Tier 2's node is done. Matravel Nest on the way instead. You know that, well, Crank is an Vilgoricor enjoyer. He's already set up for a surround into that position, and Ayud never moved. So this is an easy, known quantity. But look, the southern flank completely eviscerated, and the Strigas, they repel the east, and that is it. Now we've got Apostles in the mix. I don't think this army's going to get any smaller, guys. I think maybe Krankendau went a little bit too early, a little bit too close to the sun. Now the Apostles don't sync up with the Strigas, but they will start to help things out. And actually the Zoryu's counteracting. Those Rillarokors just give an attack target to the Apostles, and all of a sudden, you're getting free resurrections there. Sieging down from afar, trying to range down those circuits. Crank has been pretty disciplined in making them. The 4th base is up for Ayud, although he's only got a little bit of a gas mining there. We only have Vespene mining at 12. No minerals. Remember, this map depletes. He's already going to have a depleted natural soon. The Anseal can protect that Phalanx a little bit too far forward. Meanwhile, what do we have coming across the map? It's just Blackjacks and Strigas slowly but surely. It does feel like Ayud is closing in on some kind of victorious position, but he had a huge bank for a moment. He actually has enough Vespene to tier up, but not enough minerals. A little bit undersaturated on his 3rd base might be one of the reasons why. Oh, his Phalanxes are finding so much action here. And the one Goliath even encouraging some more firepower there. Now, I will say, there have been a lot of delays here from the siege line pushing any further forward. He's got the Nathracors coming in. Phalanx is ranging things down. The Gorgon slowing things down. And the Goliath kind of just offering itself up to the world. And now we've got Mantles added to the 3rd base as Gorgons fly overhead. Phalanx is coming in. So this is the flank we were expecting. There's no mines or anything to catch it. But I'm just not seeing a way for Krankendau to actually make it through. The Strigas so far forward, everything taking so much splash damage. On the bottom side, they all go down before they can burrow and get any spines out. And yeah, you might have your Vilgoricors, but there's way too many Phalanxes and way too many Strigas for you to get anything done. GG! Ayud 64, the reigning champ for a reason. Respect on his name. He takes the first map. Just like that, we are going on to Kingwa Valley with Terran in the driver's seat. We have our countdown, ladies and gentlemen, going on to Kingwa Valley for map 2 of the set. It is going to be a very exciting time. Krankendau, off of that loss, is in the top right, and I will say he is now Dark Sapphire. Aoud, Beaster Brown in the bottom left. It is TVZ. You know, there's this thing I used to do on Derelict where I would say TVZ and do the little keyboard shortcut thing there. But in the middle of Derelict, there was a ministry, so it made a little bit more sense than just an iceberg shrouded in the fog. Guys, we're going to Bioland. Aoud changing up his strategy already. Doesn't want to do the same thing. Knows Crank can and will adapt. I'm expecting a different story when it comes to the mid-game there for Crank. I think the Vornath was a fine opener versus the mech, but we are necessarily going into a different game state now that things have changed. I don't know. I do not know. I'm thinking some very exciting stuff is in the pipe as Mavericks are coming in after that Huracan. Now, it's not a very forward stockade. This isn't quite like what Top Ramen was doing. And Kingwa is a fairly balanced map in terms of the rush distance. It's not actually that close. Remember, Serenity is where we go for Game 4 if necessary. Weird to say that after Crank drops the first map. I really don't think we're going to see a 3-0 drubbing here. So it does look like it'll be a secondary Larvosk here. Crank is very comfortable holding this kind of stuff. The Maverick stemmed across the map. Huracan getting a lot of value. I said he was comfortable. I meant it. There it is. Yeah, no real joy there for Aoud. He did stem the Mavs across the map, but he's actually lost track of that one. Ooh, pulls it back just in time. It was awaiting an acrid death. And the star pad is coming. So this either means drops or it means an early switch into Wraithman, which we have seen on this map. Top Ramen versus Krankendau all the way back in the Battlements groups. It was Group A. Kicked off the whole main stage of the tournament. And the final map of their series, it was the least close, least competitive one. And Ramen was handily dealt with when it came to the star pads. Crank will establish his cliffside outpost with that ramp circuit. Whenever he needs to. It's, you know, it's 50 minerals. You delay it when you don't need it. Especially with that Quaz moving all the way across the map and scouting the Bio Army still there. I think it is just fine. Interesting. It's going to be an Antseal to move across the map early. I wonder if it's going to pair with the Huracans and just make it really, really hard for the Quaz alone to kill them. But we do have a very fast Vornath once again here for Crank. So he must be thinking about Vorvs and just seeing if he can do some kind of early aggression. This is a different style to what he used versus Ramen. I think we saw early Vorv like maybe in one game? I'm not even sure we saw that. I know we saw it at one point because Nathracors came around and killed I think it was Crisis Vector. Nathracors killed an Antseal around Krankendau's choke there in the natural, but I don't think it was super early, and I don't think it was committed on with a bunch of Vorvs early on. So this is definitely a more, you could say, aggressive style from Crank. Not something he's necessarily known for, but the Antseal is going to scout the number of units. And when you see that number of units, but even before you see the Vorvs, you can be fairly certain that what you're going up against is somebody who's going for a low econ build. But you know, he can fly in and see that, so no real worries there. The units are all moving out. This is a very early timing. We've got 36 combat units for Crank storming across the middle of the map. The Antseal will catch them on the way out, but not all of them, right? The Vorvs are already here. One Zeth just kind of scouting out, sees that there's no ministry on location. Doesn't mean there's no expansion. We've got Savants coming out. At least one of them will finish. Now, this does put a timer on the push, right? You can't actually get in to kill the Savant when there's so many other units here. In fact, I don't know that Crank can really do anything with this army at all. Well, maybe now that Aoud comes down the ramp, it could be different, but I think he takes one look at that number of Mavs and he says, okay, never mind. You know, we both went one base. I'm going to take my expand. I'm going to get my Zorkas, and I'm going to see if I can dog you in the middle of the map. Maybe get some kind of big surround. Yeah, the Naths actually are going to be really important here. They're obviously, in theory, going to go after the Ant Seal, but they scout the army, and this does give a setup there. And that was a very quick stim as well. Ayoud's stim is going to run off. We are going to be able to see a very big engagement here for Crank if he wants it, but is he just trying to slow things down? It looks like maybe that's the answer. I don't like the engagement for the Zerg if it goes closer and closer to his base. Ayoud is very deadly with his Mavericks when he wants to be. Now, diving onto the Ant Seal is good, clearing it out. No detection for when the lake has come in, but I don't know if we're even going to have a chance to look at the lake, guys, because the Quads are trying to engage on multiple fronts. That does make it a lot harder for the Mavericks to stay alive by themselves, but the stims are in, and the Savants were staying alive as well for a very long time. Only 3 lake is now starting the circuit at the ramp. At the very least, this Hacharosk is done. He even canceled the lake that was started down here. So he knew. I can't... No. Well, actually, never mind. He hasn't canceled it. No, there you go. He canceled one. I don't know what the other unit was. It might have been another lake is. Now, can Ayoud dive up the ramp? I think the answer is not necessarily yes. He lost most of his Hurricans, but he is going to try to set up for some kind of push, and he is going to give it his all, but there's so many Quads, the circuit is not going to allow him forward for free, and the Quads are just kind of dancing back and forth, but there's the lake is. Yeah, he's got to tuck tail and run. He keeps his Savants alive. I think only one went down in the bigger fight earlier. And now he's just got to be happy with it, having killed Krankendau's expansion. But the Lakers are out. He did make another Ant Seal. It wasn't with the army. Even if it was, you can't really deal with that. Being able to see them is half the battle. You got to shoot them. Stockades going out galore. 2 more being added to the mix. And we do indeed have that very important expansion for Ayoud. Crank puts his down again. Now, Crank is no stranger to expanding late into a game. But this is Kingwa Valley we're talking about, another map where we have 1,500 minerals in the main base instead of the usual 2,000 in the other maps. And yeah, we are already seeing some of the ramifications of that. But also, he's not necessarily used to losing his hatch and having to remake it. So far, when that has happened, it's only been Hamster who won, and that was in a ZVZ. So it doesn't really map onto this situation. With the Ministry being done, gas is being harvested immediately. Assess this for any anti-burst. I think if Crank wants to try to do some kind of 2-base timing to kill him, it's not going to work out. Not with the Cestus, not with so many Savants already deployed. And I think, the Quaz sees how many there are, that defensive formation. Crank is just going to have to power on, maybe grab an early expansion and hope that Ayoud doesn't move across the map. The Naths coming in for a scout is not bad. He's even going to see the saturation level of the natural, which is something his Quaz couldn't actually do. Oh. I don't know if they got it. They'll type it if they did. Otherwise, it's just me. I got 1. So, number. Get number. Because Crank is out of sync with me, but I don't know. I'll watch. Actually, let's PP. Because I gotta check the stream. Crank, can you stream for me? And then I will move him so that we can still get something. We get another POV stream, guys. Thankfully, the players are still in sync, so it's no problems there. All right. All right, guys, we are now watching the POV of the man himself, the man himself. Wait, no, that's Veek. This is Crank. Now, Krankendau, as far as I can tell, is playing with some strange upscaling options because his units are looking sharp. This is like the sharpening filter they'd put on those maps in the Kespa era, except it's not as bad. That one was outrageous. So, as we saw before this point, The Nathakor ends up scouting the whole enemy base. He's got lots of Lakizilisks. And we do see the Anseal sort of dogging the army, keeping track of things. We know exactly what is coming from this point onward. So there's the third base nearly complete. That was kind of the victory condition I said earlier, right? I don't think it's a bad thing that Crank is in the middle of the map doing things as he is, trying to posture, trying to be able to respond, maybe slow an army that's moving across the map, but he's definitely at a deficit at the start of this game. Adding to his control group, keeping his Lakes in a good spot. And of course, we do have that ridge cap coming up for his extra Vespene. He is clearly going to be looking for tier 2 to try to make up some of the deficit. We don't actually see everything that Aoud is doing, but I can tell you guys from my little backwater POV, he has taken a very quirky little spot in the bridge with an anchor and a cestus. So it is going to be, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that he can even be dealt with. And that's a treasury started at the third base. So I think Aoud has a surplus of workers he wants to transfer over for some sort of sharp timing, you know, clear out his depleted base, knowing that it depletes faster than before. And the third base in this map does obviously have a little bit more Vespene, a little bit less minerals, which compounds the mineral problems you can get into if you don't expand essentially an extra bit of time, right? So the units are just going to keep moving on, scouting out, getting a little bit of extra info here for Crank as he keeps spending down as much as he can. He's got his units on patrol in multiple places. The Nathakor providing vision for any drop that comes in from 12 o'clock side into the main. He also has great coverage down at 6 o'clock as well. He's basically isolating Aoud to a specific position. And we see here very clearly that on Aoud's side, we have that third base up. Not very much saturation on my end, but who knows if that's synced. And he is going to start his tier 2 structures as he already has secured an Atlas. So captaincies are on the way in the natural. We are going to end up seeing a little bit more Lakes be made, of course, a little bit more Zorius be made. Nathakor's patrolling very far locations, and now a fourth base for the Zerg. So trying to retake that extra little bit, trying to get a little bit of an eco advantage. I won't say that he's done it just yet, because we haven't actually gotten a read on how many workers Aoud has in that third base location. It does feel like the big transfer, the fact that he's got tier 2 faster, he's already got captaincies coming. The army is looking pretty fearsome, even on my end. So I'm going to go ahead and call this one as still a deficit for Crank to have to deal with. You can see him cycling out his Zethrakors out of his control group, trying to make sure he can keep scouting for any air-based play. He's clearly a bit disquieted because of the fact that the army is so quiet. Aoud not really doing too much. Not really saying too much, but a round of Drolef now moving up to 12 o'clock, and I think another one was actually made just now. So we are going to end up seeing that. Some anti-air defenses coming in on across all of the bases. Yeah, Crank really trying to dot his T's and cross his I's, but he's allowing Aoud to build up quite a big force. You could maybe say the same thing, as now the fourth base is coming online here for our Zerg player. Panning over the map. Adding more defenses. His tier 2 is done. His Matraval Nest is done. He's going to go for some Vilgoricors. Aoud grabbing his reservoirs. Meanwhile, he's adding Striga to his army. And the Ulgorg. Okay, the Ultrav, rather. That's coming in. Stray Mason scouting out, seeing what's going on. It's going to be met with only tier 1 units right now. But with any luck, Aoud won't be considering that as a sure thing. Sends in a Gorgakor on a scouting mission. Gonna end up seeing... Actually, he misses the tier 2 for now. There it is, sighted. But does he know the complexion of the tier 2 army? I'm not sure the answer is yes. I think that's an anchor floating into position outside of the... Yep, that is indeed it. Aoud trying to get some vision, and we hear the Eidolon snipes, so he is going to need some detection, and he doesn't have any right now, or he's going to need to overwhelm with just pure positioning, but some of his army is off to the side. All minimap gameplay right now here, but some of his units ending up getting routed, not by the anchor, but you might as well call it. and the big Terran army is moving in. Aoud has prepared one decisive strike before most of the Tier 2 can actually come online. Some Oxylcesians are on the way, but his Vespene so low right now. No ridge caps in the third base, and I think only 1 or 2 Excisants across the whole map for the geysers. Oh, actually, no, it's the ridge caps, in fact, that is all he has in some of those satellite bases. Meanwhile, Aoud has been cracked on the Vespene production. Looks like maybe 9 o'clock is being secured right now, as we just saw red dots absorb the Zethra that had been dispatched to scout and cover that information, that area. Relay that info to the crank organ. But right about now, middle of the map is getting very dark. It's very tense, and Aoud is going to be moving on the right side, reacting only through the mini-map. But we'll get those glory shots sooner or later. Army trying to split across. Certainly set up. You can see how hemming and hawing, how much you have to do here as the Zerg to try to configure the setup, and he's going to go for the surround. He's attempting to be decisive, but the lake is, they need to get it closer. They need to burrow. They are the heavy hitters here for the splash damage, and there's so many Eidolons. There are so many Hurricanes, but for a moment, they're almost all falling in the middle. He's trying to break through. He's trying to make things happen. The right side, the top, they've mostly fallen. He's going to need to evacuate with the few Lakizilisks that he has as the front line crashes upon the rocks of Aoud. And now trying to secure the bridge. You can see there's still quite a bit, and the Apostle bells are starting to toll. Plenty of Droleth, plenty of eco. Needs to get more units out. Some of the tier 2 can start to really thrust upon Aoud's army. We got Zarkavrakors in there to splash things, but they're pretty brittle when they don't regress into Gorgs. And the Ultralisks, or Ultracores now, have that lifesteal. They can stay alive if partnered up with the Vilgoricors for an unbelievable amount of time. And again, it takes a long time for Terran to get an army of that size again, so let's see. Even though overall Krank's army is weaker, he lost a lot of Lakes, he lost a lot of frontline, he's slowly building back the pieces that he needs. It's just going to take a lot more time. He has way less DPS now than his last army. Make no mistake about it. Can try to use the Ultracores to consume the corpses before the Apostles start to resurrect them, and that is a force multiplier to be feared, as now the 5th base being aggressed upon, trying to set up in a defensive position. There's the Savants getting themselves set up. I don't know if there's detection here for the side of Aoud, though, and he's gunning after all of those air units immediately popping and trying his best to step forward as Crank with those Lakizilisks. Now, much too late to the party, the Anseal arrives to detect, but the few Lakizilisks that were actually there, that's a full cleanup. And Krankendau riposts the attack, a critical error from Aoud to not have his detection so that he could stop those Lakes from doing what they do best. Sentinels have been put together, but I don't think that 9 o'clock base is going to stay alive for very long. And this feels like it's a lifeline for Aoud if he can't defend this position, or at least avenge it by clearing something of Cranks and still defending against the rest of the Zerg swarm. We are about to see Z victory from its own POV, from its own eyes. We've got plenty more units popping on the other side. And of course, a big force on that bridge. We're going to pan over to it just in time to see Apostles, Heracles, Strigas, Madcaps, and of course, out of range of the Cestus, the Ultracores trying to overwhelm the position. The Apostles, they're getting cleaned up by all those Lakes. We don't have any healing. We don't have any sustain. And only reclamation. But if everything's dead, then not even the Reclaimers endure. And I think just like that, Aoud has been broken. I don't see a way back into him on his own map pick. They're trading blows. But there's way more Zerg there where that came from. You might steal the Zarkavrakor, but you can't steal much else. GG. Just like that, we're back to a tie game, folks. It is not going to be an easy fight. Not this time around. No reverse sweep needed for either player, but who's going to take the advantage? We go to Blackwater Bastion to decide things. I thought for a second Terran was actually going to get pretty far ahead, and I think they genuinely did, but Aoud decided to sit up, ball up, and make the gambit. I'm going to bet my army's better than your army if we just shake hands and call it there. The podcast treaty was signed, but it was not enough, and Crank takes it. So, Now we go to Blackwater Bastion, map 3. It's going to be dicey. We'll see if Ayud can make it happen. It's a map that he's not favored on. We could very easily end up seeing Serenity be what could be the final map of the whole series. I think that map mostly showed you how easy it is for Zerg to remax when they are up ahead in eco, and I really think that Ayud made a bit of a mistake coming into that last map, not thinking about doing any harassment or early pressure after getting so successfully up to a phenomenal start, it felt like. But here we go, jumping into our next round. Oh, Ayud overriding, wants extra high. I don't think Crank likes that very much. Well, Ayud is in the bottom left. He is Beastra Brown, and he does not want any lag or any shenanigans interfering with his move on Blackwater. It's Krankendau in the top left as the dark olive. No, dark bronze Zerg. Okay. That's an interesting looking color for Zerg. I guess the name should have given it away. So it will be back to mech for Ayud as he has waited for the money for the Fulcrum. And of course an early pool here for Crank. Got his gas started up for the Larvosk. This is a situation where I do think you have to give the overwhelming favorite to the Zerg. I mean, we saw how resilient Krankendau can be. Ayud found more success with mech, so he's going to go for it again. And he is scouting the wrong direction, which means the Vulture will be heading in the right direction. Doesn't really mean much for early damage, as the faster pool than most Zerg players open with in this particular matchup does insulate you versus these kinds of early unit timings. And that has been Krankendau's forte, hasn't it? When we really think about it, when we really consider everything, we're talking about a situation where the Zerg from Crank is just, it's conservative enough. Even though he went very aggro in the last 2 games with the Vornath, he's never going to be threatened with an early game bust. And that's not going to stop the Terrans from trying. Okay. Vulture finds a kill. Zeth Corpse left. We know the relative position of both players. The Vultures can start heading in that direction. And there he is, spotting the Quaz. Cheeky little burrow. I don't hate the idea. Very cute. Looking like Jack Jelensky there for a moment. Or maybe Cannoli, I guess, right? But I think Crank would think I'm insulting him. That Zeth in the top right for Scout does end up getting cleared, so that is a little bit helpful. We know Crank loves himself an early Scout. So the Vultures are the pièce de résistance. We do indeed have Cyclops and Oh! So this is an early push-up with no add-on. And it's honestly up against, stylistically, a great spot here. We don't see the normal flood of Zeths. It's just pure Quaz, which struggle versus the armor of the Goliath. And the reason, also versus Cyclops Splash. And, you know, Vultures don't have a hard time versus them either. But the Avaleth is coming, might bait out versus the Mines. But the Zorkish Shroud takes a much longer time to actuate. Okay, Ayud is going to go for a Stockade. I mean, I don't hate the idea. The problem is he has no phalanx or artillery or anything, and with no anchor for range advantage and no cestus for detection, I don't see how he deals with the inevitable Lakizalisk. But so far, it has been Vornath-oriented, so maybe that's what he's expecting. And now he actually spots the Avaleth on the way. Now, does he respect this as an option for something a little bit more on the side of, you know, a drop, or does he just assume it's there for scouting? Either way, the Goliath, earmarked to defeat it. We'll see how good its DPS actually is. It is not on attack move. There we go. Not quite able to get in there, which is unfortunate. It also reveals the situation, scouting-wise. A little bit of friendly fire onto the Masons, too. Never hurt nobody. Builds character, puts hair on your chest. Now the Lakers are out, and, I mean, sure, you got the stockade in the front. It's for vision, I see, for the push. But I think versus the lake is all you can do is pray. I mean, the star pad isn't even started yet. Instead, Ayud wants that ministry. He had floated so much minerals. So many minerals in that time. He's not necessarily going to die, though. That's the other tricky thing. The Ovaleth is killed, so there's no detection for all those mines. And, you know, you can take these early trades and try to focus down individual units, but you do have to be able to plan your retreat well. And remember, you're going over your own mines if those pool units end up chasing. One of those Lakizilisks brought very low. Starpad started. Does he even want to go for anything else? I mean, oh, hold on. That's actually a big moment. I don't think he even expected Crank to go for something like this. Both of those Lakizilisks are gone. There's 2 left. One of them not even burrowed yet. But the Cyclops are very brittle to this kind of thing, and all the Vultures are gone, which makes it a little bit easier now. Still, he dives forward, actually. He's forcing the issue. He's going to focus down another Lakis. He needs to dive backwards, especially with the armor end on the Goliath. Oh, so many Cyclops shells detonating, popping the Quaz all at once. Oh, man, such a scrappy situation right now as more Vultures scream forward trying to lay the mines. The hatch is down, but remember, Ayud isn't all in with this. He's adding a stockade, 2 stockades and a fulcrum behind it. He's got his star pad down. His sieve is up. He's just spending as much money as he can as he cycles in with the Vultures. He's got mines. Oh, but he's held at an arm's length by the Zoryus. Wow, how did they stay alive? They must have dodged those spines just by chance almost. Laying some mines, trying to get things going, but the Zets hatch, and he gets a full scout of what's coming at least. He's certainly keeping up the pressure, but Crank has queued up 5 Droleth. He is not feeling that pressured, and it does look like Ayud is going to disengage, so he holds. It went from being really obvious Crank would hold to being not so certain when he decided to go out versus all those mines, and then being really obvious again. Maybe if the spending was a little bit more on point, Ayud would have had a sharper follow-up to that timing. Feels like he overspent on production in this game, and then didn't have the money to actually operate it all. He's going to go for 2 Palladium, a scrapyard. I guess it makes sense to go for Blackjacks on some level, but I really do prefer Cyclops in this situation. You can do, like, the old trick where you make some Matadors and deploy them. That was something that was TVZ meta for a little bit. I think it was even TVP meta for a very brief time. It was like Cyclops Matador. Because the Matadors just don't die to the Cyclops shells with all their armor. And anything that's trying to kill the Cyclops is chasing them through the shells and getting armor-rended by the Matador and so on and so forth. But Vestry makes a lot of sense. Stockade airlifts over to start making Hurricanes closer. And we do have Madrigals coming in a big way, so... We've seen this kind of composition go head-to-head a number of times in recent memory. Obviously, Top Ramen tried plenty of Madrigals when he was doing mech styles. We also saw it from Hit 'em Up TVZ against Hamster in the upper final. So, players in some agreement about what to expect and what to make. What's so funny is we rarely see Bactylisks TVZ or ZBT anymore, right? The Zerg never really makes Bactylis. Phalanx on the way. Ayud has been in situations kind of like this before on Radium. He's not as pressured to take that extra base, though. As you can see, the minerals are still healthy. That makes a big difference. Still ahead in workers for now. Stockade scouting out the army in the middle of the map. Not even moving as the Gorgs heckle it. Notice there's no anti-air here. No Quaz at all. One big weakness of these compositions, but Terran don't really have good air units to use against this right now. You need to specifically go for Mass Wraith, which Dog is a big fan of. And I think I saw... I mean, obviously Ramen tried it in an official, but Ramen did not try it versus Crank last time. Stockade finally noticed. It will be brought down. Mine hit. Another one. Pre-deployed with the most of the units here. There we go. Phalanx also getting in on the action. And remember, He's been making 2 of them at a pop now after the initial madrigals. He's going to add 1 more in. And all these mines getting cleared. It's a little bit difficult for Ayud to not lose all of the mines early. And, you know, if he wants to replenish that, he needs to make more vultures at this time, which he doesn't really want to have to make, but he will queue 1 up. Crank has taken the worker advantage, the worker lead. He's now adding a hatch in the 3rd base position. The vultures are getting out, trying to look for any sort of angle that they can find on the map. Well, it is actually forcing the army away from the front gates, and sure, you've got a patrolling Zeph that will tell you that the rest of the units have left, but now you've been chasing these vultures across the map, and your 3rd base is perhaps under a little bit of threat here. Now, this is a big committal from Ayud if he decides to actually go for the 3rd base. He doesn't have his 3rd ministry up himself. The vultures see that the army is still kind of dancing around. So instead, Ayud decides to entrench a little bit further away. The theory of it makes a lot of sense. He's got clerics boosting the armor of that Goliath to 4. That is as tanky as a sieged Matador. And the Phalanxes are getting tons of damage. The Cyclops staying alive for a little bit longer than Crank would want. And they're helping to soften up the Gorgs as well, although it is dealing some friendly fire. Eventually, all those Gorgs will be brought down. And it does look like the ground army is going to get wiped here for Ayud. Ayud has so much money in the tank, neither player making a single thing. So focused on the micro, so focused on the army setup. But there were no mines here to slow down that assault. Nothing made it too hard for the Zerg player, and now reduced to ashes. He puts down another ministry, but I think at this point Ayud knows, if Crank just attacks me, I'm dead. We're going to Serenity with a 2-1 scoreline. The Atlas has started. The Ministry has started. If only he still had an army, we could extend play for a little bit longer. Zerg army is looming. Man, there's just nothing here for Ayud. You see all of these units. He's got to make magic happen with no wall, no advance warning, no cestus, 1 Anseal, a few mines. Actually, you know, he is kind of egoing Crank. Auraing Crank, I should say. Tier 2 starts for the Zerg player. 4th base starts for the Zerg player. Well saturated at the 3rd already. 21 Droleth on the way. I mean, this is going to get outrageous soon. Now, this is a way that Zerg can lose their lead, is if they don't keep investing in military units. The problem is, after that disastrous move out earlier, there's no way Ayud feels comfortable moving out, right? He doesn't have that much production. Now we're adding Covenants kind of late into the game. The Atlas is done. We'll see what else gets added behind them. Some of those Madrigals are not moving from their position. Still paranoid about a move out, but instead, look at the big army from Crank, if you want to call it big. Actually, it's pretty small. One captaincy to go along with all of the Tier 1 bio. 3rd base starting to get saturated here, but it's a pittance. Yeah, I think Ayud needs to win this game on 3 bases somehow, and he might be allowed the opportunity if Crank keeps taking a long time to assemble a good army. But what's the Tier 2 that we're actually going to end up seeing? We don't have a crazy amount of Vespian in the tank for him, so it's not really like he can go for Mass Oxel. He was thinking about the Ultrav. Yeah, he's going to go for it. Normally, he goes from a Travel. I don't know how that mine was still in the game this whole time, but finally dealt with. Ironically, it feels like there's a degree to which Krankendau being baited by those 4 vultures all the way across the map, then counter-baited Ayud to go for this push. And he didn't have any vultures to lay mines for this position. And he didn't have any real good tanking units to try to keep the Lakias at an arm's length so that the Madrigals and the Phalanxes could hit from a range. Especially the Phalanxes. Tier 2 will be scattered. It's a guild hall. So I think at this point, Ayud is going to go for Autocrats to try to win from there. Although I did hear Top Ramen talk a lot about Olympians. Like Olympian Apostle being a really good comp. It will be an Autocrat, of course. We've got a 2nd captaincy, but no add-on to it. Wouldn't suck to have some Heracles on the field, but Crank taking his time for now. 3 Ultra Cores on the way. Another Oxel Cesian. Slowly but surely starting up. He's got 2.5k minerals. What's he even going to spend it on? At this point, you could just start making mass hatch and start sending Zethar Cores across the map. just infinitely. 3 Zarks on the way, 6 Zoryus, 9 Zoryus. Looks like it's been mostly Covenants, or mostly Savants. I haven't seen any Eidolons. So he's just trying to get that 3 armor pen system going. He doesn't have any armor rend, though. I guess there's a couple of Hurricanes mixed in, but... Steal himself a Vorv. Hey, every bit helps. This little isolated spot needs to be very careful as a 4th base is being established at 6 o'clock here. What a very, very deep line of deployed units. Madrigals, Phalanx, Savants. Very thematic, don't get me wrong. But isn't this just the wet dream of the Zerg? You can see all of the units stretching out across the map. He's going for every little thing he's got. He's got so many Zarks. I don't know if there's enough splash damage here. The 3 armor of the Zarkavra Corps prevents splash damage from the Savants, but they're not even in their splash mode anyway. Here we go, boys. Oh, maybe not. A little bit cautious, a little bit concerned. Trying to set up for a different flank. But, I mean, look how far deep it is, man. He's really forcing the issue, leaving the position over here by the 3rd base completely empty, by the way. Couple Savants. Cycling him back. Might catch him in the middle of an unsiege. There's only... Oh, okay, the Ant Seals are nearby for the detection on this flank. But this is a 3-pronged assault. And 2 of them are already linking up. Now the Zarks are starting to turn tail. The Ant Seals staying alive for now. Madrigal's doing their best. All of these Phalanx in a clump, but there's not so many Lakissilisks on that side. The Zarkavra Corps is the main source of splash here for Krankendau, but the Madrigals have started to double back. We still have detection here. The Autocrats trying to bravely keep their stand going, but I don't know if it's quite enough. He's got more units that need to get ambulating. They need to get moving. The Ant Seal staying alive is so huge here because the lake is otherwise will just have free reign, and there they go. All gone. No Ant Seals left. The Zarks are staying alive for way too long. And Krankendau will just barely crack through the defenses. A hell of a lot closer than I think we thought. No sustain here, though. And even though it's a weird decolliding mess, a morass of units, there's still so many Zoryus. We got Zarks coming. A slow and eventual demise here for Aeud 64. Honestly, that was about as good as you could have hoped for in terms of the result of the engagement. GG. Krankendau dangerously close to dropping a little bit of steam, but doesn't end up happening. Led the game for most of it, rebuffs the early attack, and gets him good with the counter push. So we play that Zerg music one more time, Terran boy, as we go into Serenity for our next map. And you talk about maps that prefer those kinds of aggressive openers. Aeud needs to make magic happen here, and then needs to win on the last map, a very even map, Crisis Vector. Could be our decider. Man, Aeud looks so good when you start, you take the first map. You're talking about a situation where he ends up going for the next one as well and just not able to make it over the line. But here we go, guys. Cranking down the bottom left. He's Yim in blue again. Aeud in the top right. He's Beaster Brown again. We have some Vespene being harvested, so this kind of tells me he's going for mech on Serenity. I thought this would be a biomap hands down. But if he goes mech and if he goes for his vulture push, it is a little bit harder to hold given the shorter rush distances. What is Crank going to do? It looks like his standard pool timing, not going super early the way he does on Brainstorm. We'll see if that bites him. All right. It's Fulcrum. Pool Larvosk. Is it going to be a second Fulcrum again? Ayud slowly building up the gas bank to do so. I wouldn't hate a more like dog TVT or TVP opening where you just go triple Fulk and spam those vultures out. It beat Neblime. Maybe it can beat Crank. You know, Crank used to be the chief progenitor of putting a Droleth somewhere and burrowing it and then unburrowing it for a later scout. And he doesn't really do that anymore. In fact, nobody really does that anymore. You guys may not know this, but back in the day, we used to call it a Shambler strategy where Shambler would take his Droleth, put it right in the middle of the choke so that he would be aware of when the enemy moved out. That was only as good as, you know, when people started actually moving out with like individual units early to kill it. It obviously fell off of success, but, you know, I guess that could still theoretically work if you go someplace where only a big army might move. I love that the Droleth took a roundabout way back, and the Quaz even came out to escort it back to the hive. One Quaz, easily worth keeping one Droleth alive. So, denied early economic damage. The scout returns. Very solid. Worth, hashtag worth. Dude, our show match is going to feature this very matchup, TVZ. And I need to show this this series to the Z as well, dude. Like, these are some sick games. Super interesting early moves. It makes perfect sense from a theoretical perspective, and you see it all the time in something like StarCraft 1, but super cool to see it also happening in Cosmonarchy. Protecting that early scout, making sure it comes back into the fold. It's going to be a Matador drop now for Mr. Ayud, the reigning champion. It's series point for Crank. Zerg is going to go Vornath to try to break out of the Mind Contain. Four Vultures alone can't really do much to pressure this many Quaz, even with those mine hits, but maybe it would have been nice to try to aura him a little bit. Push in, be aggro. Now he's doing it. So, the Matador drop versus Zerg, I'm not sure I like it quite as much. The Zerg can try to move their Droleths in whatever direction they want to, although actually right now Crank doesn't have anywhere to drill onto. So that part does make it a little bit dicey. You drop it right here. You know, one here, one here. That might work out just fine. And it kind of is fortuitous that the Vultures are going to catch the move out as the Trojan comes in. Presumably, Crank is going to try to bust out of this, so it's good timing for Ayud. He cycles his Vultures back immediately, and this is exactly what he wants. He doesn't want a single military unit to be inside the base when the Matador drops hit. Maximum damage potential, but he is going to need to hold in the back, making one more Matador for safety. His Ministry already down. When does the Trojan decide to unload? Looks like pretty soon now. Blackjack's trying to keep things going, and here we go, but he's not on the ball. Who notices the Trojan first? He didn't actually go for it. He did not unload. So what could be a beautiful situation here for Ayud 64 is not going to be one at all. He's going to need to cancel that, and only then, he's not even going to see the Trojan first. Krankendau looks back, and he can easily get his units out of dodge. You can see Ayud's going to have to micro this, and look at the bank. He's got 1,200 minerals. He once again does not have any unload going. Oh, man, the pressure is on. Worrying about it. And he's just trying to get what little he can do, what little he can make happen, but it's not quite enough. Now on the other side, the Blackjacks are deadly, but he doesn't scoop up those Matadors before they crack. And we have another one back over here for another drop, but this Trojan is so far away. That could have been Game 5. That could have been the death knell for Crank's economy. All those extra Droleths he made to transfer to a base that's not yet even placed would have been torn to shreds. Oh my God. Well, lads, we're going back a ways. We're going back to Terran school. Apparently, when you struggle on the push here, and you're not able to get that early damage you wanted, your move is to drop a second ministry. I have seen Terrans die trying to be greedy with their early third ministry for so many times. I'll tell you this. If Aoud either takes this back base by dropping Matadors down to break it, or he decides to just use this ministry to make more Masons, I'm okay with it. I think it's actually a totally fine play. You're still able to defend yourself very well. And it also, crucially, it's not scouted by Crank, so he doesn't yet know he needs to be very aggressive to... he doesn't yet know he has a window to bust. The Anciel moves across the map. Not sure if it spotted the timing on that hatch. Zorka's Shroud about to pop, so good to have an Anciel at this point. We'll keep an eye on what Aoud has noticed in the meanwhile. As both ministries complete, he is just going to queue up some Masons. He hasn't yet used his Trojan to clear that back base in the pit. I haven't really seen anybody do that in a recent tournament match. I've seen Protoss use Artisans for it, but not really anything else. Now, Matador's taking a bit more of a forward position. It looks like a Phalanx drop is queued up. Would be my speculation, but look at all the Zethra cores. I guess the mines, if they stay alive, you know that a Zeth isn't patrolling the immediate area, might be able to get away with a Trojan in that location, but we've got Aether cores out, so the vision will be there. And now the worker transfer comes in. They are even on workers. This 2000 mineral map is, of course, going to be a situation where you can do a 2-base tier 2 rush for either player. Crank stretching ahead a little bit on that worker count. It'll be kept abroad because Aoud has that third ministry. Got a pretty defensive position. The Matadors are going to be really difficult to actually break through, and the Phalanx is deploying. I don't really like that spot. I would have liked them up here at the high ground a little bit more. Atlas and the Natural, okay, tier 2. Kind of hard for the Ovaleth to come in and scout that, because if it comes in this way, the Blackjacks are nearby. Not that we even see an Ovaleth right now, of course. So that's one thing that we can say, right? Aoud is at his expansion up faster. He's going to have his tier 2 up way faster because we've got Gorga cores on the way. We don't have any Watchdogs, and the scouting is just some mines right now. So while the Anciel is escorting the army, looking for hold position Lakizilisks, which you can do in Cosmonarchy, for now... I think the way that it works is a little bit different, though. I can't quite remember. Before, you just do it with, like, selecting an Overlord, right, in StarCraft 1, but I think it's a little bit different this time. Cheeky. Third base starting now for Crank, but remember that Ministry has been complete for a very long time for Aoud, so he's going to switch over and immediately start harvesting. You have 5 workers being made right now for the Zerg favorite. Big blob of Terran in between the Natural and the third, but it's not quite defending the third base from a roundabout flank. His Anciel is further out, so at least he can look at that. Mantles are starting. He's going to go for Katas, I think. The one Zeth now announcing its presence. The Terran army needs to go defend. He'll cancel the sieve. Lake is in the spot. He's going to need to cancel this base, lift it up. It's still a really good spot for the Terran, though. He's got a very strong army. It's unbustable right now. Oh, he doesn't want to lose that Anciel if he can help it, though. And now he's stretched out a little bit more, but, you know, he can cycle some of the Blackjacks back to defend the Natural push, and his Anciel's still off to the side, anticipating further moves, but he can't expect that that's the whole army, right? He saw the size of it. Oh, he's going to lose the Anciel. Unfortunate. Needs another one ASAP. No detection right now in this base. So he starts up the next one. Might be baiting Crank in a little bit. Remember, there's that high ground position at 3 o'clock. But, you know, yeah, I mean, I killed the Anciel. I might as well start to go for a little bit of a siege. Still ends up losing a lot of those units. And this 3 o'clock army hasn't actually activated yet, so this isn't terrible. Anciel about 75% of the way done. Losing a couple of workers isn't too bad. You're basically clearing this army for just Blackjacks, and you've got your tier 2. Iral Iris now started for Crank. He's going to ascend up the tech tree. Aoud's still actually ahead in workers for a brief period of time. But the Lakers need to get the hell out of Dodge as the Anciel arrives, surely. He's actually diving forward. He wants to see what he can do on this other side, but his units have gotten totally confused. The Mantles finish further. Actually, he scouted that, and we've got Cataphract starting as the Ministry re-lands at that third base. Now, in the time, Crank has fully saturated his third. Still no excisants, just mining from the ridges that have been capped in all 3 bases. We've got 8 more Lakizilisks where that came from, but I really do think Cataphract packs such a punch. You do need to get through the Zorius. That is one concern. But if the Lakis don't have anything in between them and the Katas will annihilate them. You don't even necessarily need detection, although it does help, because the Katas do penetrate, or I guess intercept, so they get blocked by whatever. If you get a nice ball of those, it's pretty difficult for the Zerg to actually find a way to chisel that down. There's always a couple of small little seeding cells. The pool units extending forward. We've got a starport for Aoud. I'm looking around at the bases. I see more static defense coming at the 3rd. 4th base in the bottom right started up. 12 workers. I don't like the army size right now for Crank. I'm honestly a little bit worried for him. His army is able to rotate over as that one Quaz spots out, very importantly, what's going on. Cataphract count very healthy at 7. And more of them will be rumbling out. He's got 3 more in production. A treasury has begun, and it's actually at a peculiar location at 10 o'clock. Okay, it looks like we're going to go for Azazels to try to defensive matrix, keep key units alive behind all of the Lakizilisk spines. Now, this little slice of Terran could be gotten the better of if he's not careful. He's not deployed right now. The Phalanxes are still going to offer a ton of value here. And I think Crank might actually get baited in by this little outcrop of Terran on the other side. But most of these units should be just fine. And yeah, he actually can't pull the trigger on that surround. He was beaten back a little bit too quickly by the few deployed Phalanxes. Sometimes I feel like Crank is a little bit too lackadaisical. Sometimes I feel like Crank is a little bit too timid. And now the Cataphract ball demands attention. The Phalanxes rooted firmly in position. We've got Blackjacks on the other side. Only one Anseal could be a target. Reinforcements attempted to be cut off. But Aoud is going to try to siege this position down. He will try to force the issue. He feels like he's in a position of power. A couple of Ramses also offering. The Vilgoricors going down before even Carapace Swarm can go off. That's 3 big kills for the army. And here we go. The attack coming in from 12 o'clock. The Anseal uncontested. And none of the Vilgoricors have gotten a Carapace Swarm off. The Cataphracts are not focusing down individual targets, but now the bottom is wiped. Oh, it's beautiful. The Terran army is enormous, and Game 5 queued up. Aoud extends play. And that's why you make the mantles. And that's why we call him champ. We'll settle this on Crisis Vector. Had to take a sip of water after that one, guys. Hype situation. Very excited to see a Game 5. You can never count these guys out. All right, lads. GLHF, it's time for Game 5. And I am pumped, man. I can't wait to see it. Krankendau in the top left. Dark bronze again. Bottom right, Beastra Brown Terran is Aoud 64, reigning champ. against the newcomer, against the debutant. And, you know, Crank's been around a while. Maybe at least as long as Ayud, actually. But he never participated in Acropolis 2. He missed his chance to come at the eventual king. He decided to bide his time, wait to meet him now. Well, it's a very fast stockade for Ayud. We are going to see Bio. Hot damn. All right. It's not too far forward, so I'm going to go ahead and predict that it's Huracan into Maverick again. And we do have a very early pool. I mean, it's the same build for Crank. He's going his pool. He's got his gas in the tank. He's going to go for the Larvosk. Crisis Vector is a map where Krankendau is very confident and comfortable playing. He picked this map. I mean, you could say he picked Radium, but he lost it. But fair. But we're not going to get back into that composition. This one is Bio. It's tricky, right? I mean, you win 2 out of 3 games with Mech. You go 1-1, so you go 2-1 with Mech and 0-1 with Bio. To go and pull out Bio at this stage is a very interesting choice. We have those little bits of Vespene trickling in from 2 miners on the Geyser. The Mason collects his battle report. The Mavericks await their orders, going up to a pretty healthy amount in the early game. It could be as unceremonious, as explosive, as a fast push with Mavs, but look at this. Has Shopkeeper Dog gotten his wish? Star Pad. Well, we'll only know conclusively when the second one shows up. First death popped. He knows that there's another one on the way. Crafty Ayud. But he's going to need to give up the ghost here. He's going to need to stim that one. And he should be able to bring it down. Yeah, very nice. I don't even know if he showed the Huracan there. That was really good. Kept the Mason going. First star pad complete. And we will have more infantry where that came from. So it's an Antseal early on. It does force multiply. There used to be I'm talking ancient tactics like 3 years ago. People found out that if you put your Antseals with your bio, you extend their lifespan so much, but it's such a micro-intensive strategy that I didn't really think we would see it in serious games. Well, let's see if that's even what it is. It might just be early shenanigans. And the Antseal might be a ploy anyway. Although when you do see the Antseal, you start worrying about drops, and if it's not drops and instead something a little bit more numerous, could be Wraith. And the Antseal is actually useful in that as well, so not terrible, not dreadful. No expansion on the way for Ayud. He's actually capping his ridge on 1 base. What's he planning? Pretty big gas bank. I guess it could be Covenant. Oh, okay. A couple Cyprians queued up. Yeah, he's actually making 3 Cyprians right now. So I think what he's hoping for is that the Cyprians will range down a lot of the Quas, and he can take care of small numbers of Zoryus with the Mavericks that he's got. And, you know, Cyprians don't trade terribly into Lakizalisks, but you can also just use your stimmed Mavericks to try to pop individual ones. So you can click on those eggs, see what's coming. It's 2 Lakes right now. Actually a pretty meager affording right now from Crank. Man, quad stockade. And the star pad was just for a single Antseal. That's a lot of resources just to go into that one compulsory detection unit. And it makes a ton of sense. Move outsighted. Crank should know now. What's he going to do behind this? He actually doesn't have that many minerals. Put down his hatch. Starts another Lakizalisk. Does he really only have 2? This is so risky, it feels like. Yeah, I mean, Ayud is gathering the information. He only spots the 2 Lakes. What does he want to do with this? Okay. The stim is in. He goes in for the line. The Antseal already allowing the Mavericks to dive forward. That's one Lake is popping. He's got 2 more coming. And with the cliff advantage, the Lake is not enough. Oh, man, it's so low. It is so low. Ayud is diving forward. That last spine needed to return in order to give the results that we needed. And it's a tier 1 base rush, a committal from Ayud. But I don't know if he's going to be able to bust him as fully as he needs to. Remember that hatch is still up and running. But can you deal with all the sips? He's going to ignore the Lake. He's going for the workers. Krankendau needs to pull back. It's so tense. He pounces. The last Lake is down. A lot of quads about to hatch. This eco damage is good, but he needs to do a little bit more. And now he's surrounded. Now he's got to deal with those Cyprians, but GG is called. Krankendau has been defeated, and the king continues to take heads. GG! Unbelievable scenes with the story continuing. Krankendau demolished at the end. Bowled over by that quad stockade. That build must have been prepared. It took everything from Ayud. It took all 5 games, and he makes it further. He pushes in. And all right then. We got a little bit of a different story on our hands. The world is just a little bit less Zergy now. The tournament will not have another Z-Mirror this time. As excited as I was for Krankendau's odds, he was not able to best Ayud on Serenity, nor on his opening map choice. And so the story continues for our reigning champion. And that is just gorgeous. Hamster has Terran competition earlier than he thought, as Ayud64 takes the series. Contested games, 5 maps, across about an hour and 40 minutes of play. It has been a journey for our players, but the GGs have to be exchanged. I think it's about time we bring Ayud in to have a few words. Ladies and gentlemen, your reigning champion, Ayud64, continues his assault, his campaign for a successive conquest. And my man, that was a tight series. Tell me how you're feeling. I just owned myself because I said all that stuff while deafened. Ayud, you just won a very close series versus Zerg, versus Crank. You are continuing your conquest, your campaign for a successive story. It's going to be tough. You still got another Zerg to deal with, but how are you feeling after Crank?
I still can't believe I beat Crank, you know. Especially because, you know, he was playing really, really well. Despite I you know, the first game, the victory, I still wasn't sure, you know, about how was I gonna be able to beat his macro game, because, you know, he looked so strong in those mid to long games. I don't know. I'm lost for words. Really. I guess I'm still shocked.
Of course, yeah.
But I'm happy nevertheless. I'm happy that I got the victory here.
It must have been a strange feeling when you went up 1-0 in the series, talking all the way back on Radium. It's a situation where, I mean, it's a map that Crank picks for a reason. He was able to withstand the assault from Ramen. You open mech instead of Ramen's bio into Phalanx drop. You go a different style, which did end up giving you a little bit of a lead, but then he counters with the early Vornath Pond, which was actually a staple of this series in particular. The Zerg ends up using that quite a bit, even on, Kingwa Valley. I saw it again cited elsewhere in the set. Might have been Serenity. Yeah, it was Serenity. So these are interesting moves that we actually are seeing, Crank dip into, maybe forced into, showing a bit more of his playbook, a bit more of his strat book. And you're still able to come out on top. But talk to me about Radium. If you can cast your mind all the way back to then, what do you think gave you the edge in those army fights? Because it did look for a while that maybe he was going to get his fourth base up. His third was nice and thrumming. You were able to sort of keep up with the eco, but there was a couple times he slowed you or just made it so that it was a little bit more awkward for you. Was there some, particular strategy you were going for that ended up working out? How did you win Radium?
Well, I guess, I still believe that Bio has a chance, but I don't know. I felt weird during this series because, I thought I was playing really well, but then again, oftentimes found myself floating a lot of minerals, and I didn't really know what was happening to me. On that particular game, I guess I'm just used to using mech play. So it is a bit comfortable for me. I kinda know the compositions I need to counter Crank's units, but it's just weird, man. Because sometimes I still can't figure out how how Ser can macro so fast. When I think I'm ahead and suddenly he appears with a lot of units. I think I was just waiting for him to make a mistake. Like, I was being very careful, trying to siege all my units, have an advantageous position, because during the practice games, Crank he will almost always surprise me with an ambush. Like, he will attack and my tanks are not sieged, and my units are not prepared in the way I wanted. So this time I just try to play a little bit more cautious.
Okay.
And as soon as I saw that, I was trying to get to his base, to his third, but very slowly, because Zerg has this. Because the way of the macro. If you win the first fight and then you just send everything to his base, you're probably gonna get run over by the second wave of units. I didn't want that, so I just was trying to advance, really slow, getting the right unit compositions, and when he made the first move and attack into my units, and he lost a lot, I knew that it was my opportunity to take. So I just, after that moment, I moved forward, and I was right. I eventually was able to beat him.
Yeah, eventually able to kind of grind him down. I thought that a storyline here that we're going to have to double click on when it comes to this strategic layer of TVZ is keeping the layers of your siege line very, very split up. Even though Blackwater Bastion jumping a little bit ahead wasn't a win for you, you had a very, very extensive siege line across the sort of middle strip of the map above the fourth base location at 6 o'clock. And obviously you did a lot of shuffling and moving, and it felt very scattershot and frenetic, but at the end of the day, you're almost end up holding. And that was a situation where he had the decisive advantage economically, maybe even in terms of tech. There's a lot of room there for it to have gone a different way had maybe you had been a little bit further even in terms of money, but obviously that was a different story. However, that kind of thing is not something Terrans have been doing historically. I think you're right to point out keeping things deployed and worrying about if the Zerg attacks you before they are deployed and before you can get everything set up. It's like the difference between a really good setup and suddenly I got to drop all the things now, sort of, what would you say, half-cocked setup. That's the kind of thing where it will absolutely change the outcome of the fight. So was that on your mind even in that fight on Blackwater where you just narrowly end up losing it?
Yeah, definitely. I knew in Blackwater that I was playing from behind for some reason because I just was taking my time to set my economy. The first aggression didn't go as I expected, so I delayed a lot my natural expansion. So also I was floating a lot of minerals, and I knew I had to. I would have to play catch up because Zerg can just lay a base and almost instantly fill it with all the drollets. So um, I knew I it wasn't gonna move out until maybe tier 2, or maybe I was just hoping that Crank make a mistake by attacking into my deployed units. But I think I could have hold that last attack, but I think I just don't have the necessary micromanagement, because you have to deploy the savants, you have to deploy the siege tank, you have to deploy the madrigals, the shaman, you have to keep the ancil in the right position so you can snipe the lurkers with the siege tank. It's a lot of micro, and on top of that you have to still keep macroing. So I wasn't able to pull the strategy. It's just too micro intensive. Maybe with 300 APM you can do it, but I think I'm still a slow gamer. So yeah. I believe that Terran composition is really, really strong, but it requires too much micro, and in the end, it didn't pay off for me. So Crank took the victory. Yeah.
Now, we also can cycle a little bit back towards Kingwa Valley. You were talking about maybe being a little bit on the slower side of the expansion timing on Blackwater. It felt like it was a little bit more even, especially after the early aggression on Kingwa Valley, your map pick. This is right after you beat him on Radium. Probably end up feeling pretty good at that point. And yet, after some nice early game moves from the Terran side, you end up kind of turtling up, setting up your good defensive spots across the bridge, the Cestus, the Savants, stuff like that. And you build up your tier 2 composition, but by then he's taken, his own third base, his fourth base is up and running. He's taken that fifth that you end up spotting, but aren't able to quite move across the map to kill. Talk to me about how Kingwa Valley ended up going, because it almost felt like there was an agreement that we're both going to make tier 2 armies and then we're going to fight, and it just didn't quite work out for you there.
I was sure that my expansion was earlier than his, so I just decided to to sit back and let him try to be the aggressor, because he was playing catch up. So I just decided to turtle up because he was making a lot of units at the beginning. That's why I tried to delay my expansion a little bit. His attack didn't do anything. So I just took my time. I thought I had the right amount of units after I got the tier 2. But the thing is that the longer the game goes, I think the Zerg has the advantage, because they can just macro better than the Terran. When I decided to move out, I think for a moment I had the advantage, because I was moving to the middle of the map with relatively ease. I knew he was trying to get those tier 2 units, but I don't know. Maybe I kind of feel a little bit scared of the Zerg macro army. Maybe I just needed to learn, like, split a little bit and send some units to the bases, try to split his attention. But I just think that every Terran unit is so important against the Zerg that I didn't really do that. I just wanted everything like the Terran Death Ball to deal with his army. But I think that was a mistake. I probably needed to try to split his attention, because he had a lot of more bases than me. But yeah, like I said, the Zerg macro is scary. So yeah, I don't know.
No, it's fair enough. The macro of the Zerg can be unmatched, it feels like, and sometimes it almost is like if they've just spent all of that money on their economy, sure, they have a bigger worker count than you, but how long does it take to actuate? I think that's another thing that people are slowly getting a feel for is, okay, they have more economy than me. They might have that other base starting to come up, but when does that turn into more units that I have to worry about? And also, how can I stop that? You had so many times in the series, in wins and in losses, where you end up forcing him to make so many units because he knows that if you attack him, he's dead. Actually, that happened even on the first game on Radium, where he starts to commit to a heavier army, but you just pull back after, hoping that maybe intuiting that he's started more military units because his army's too small to hold you, but you don't go for the jugular all the way. And so I think there's going to be tons of mind games in this matchup about that specific thing, feinting with an army that they're not sure about how big it is versus okay, am I going to just greed and hope that it's not real? Am I going to keep scouting the way Crank does? Crank does a great job of scouting, of course. I'm sure that was actually something you were even a little bit upset about. It. On Serenity, there was an exact moment after you rebuff his attack on the third base where it looks like you're about ready to move across the map in a decisive way, but you almost have to change course because one quaz spots your whole army, you know what I mean? So was that something that you had to deal with a lot, is just the fact that he always had units everywhere, it felt like?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I liked of Crank, that he tried to scout everything, so he wants to know the right amount of military units that his opponent has, so he can decide whether go for a lot of drones or just get more military. And I think that's something that not many Zergs are good at, or maybe they just skip it completely. But Crank, he's a top Zerg. He's constantly scouting. He's using the Zerling, I mean, he's using every tool he can. So he wants to know exactly what is happening in the battlefield. And I think that that's something that really, really good Zergs needs to do in order to to use the race properly, because it's like you said, you just try to intimidate the Zerg in a way, like you can move with a little group of forces of army, pretend that you're going to attack, and then just pull back, and all of a sudden the Zerg is economically behind because they just made a lot of military units. So definitely mind games are going to be important in the matchup, but yeah, I think that Crank he's really good at knowing and scouting, and that definitely did something to my style, because I couldn't really move out comfortably because I knew that he just knew what I was going to do, and sometimes I got a little bit scared, so I just decided to play sometimes defensively because of that.
Fair enough. One of the things that I'm always interested in is, of course, the killing moment, the winning moment, which on Crisis Vector, you decide to go for this really, I would say, a sharp build where, you imagine a tool that has that serrated edge or has that pointy blade. If you run at it against a hard enough wall, it'll just snap. But if you find the right moment, you can go straight between the metal plates of the armor. And it does feel like that's exactly what happened with this build, where if you had been held at the pass, it would have gone for a longer game. Who knows what happens there? But instead, you're able to slink in. You get that conga line straight up, sort of going straight up towards the top of the map there into his natural. And it's a build where it's Quad Stockade, it's Maverick, Huracan, Cyprian, which is a unit that hadn't been made in the series up until that point. And of course, the Anseal. The Starpad and Anseal combo, that's like 250 gas or something. It's a very expensive grab, and but absolutely important for the inevitable Lekizalisk. So talk to me about that build. How long was that in the wheelhouse? And were you maybe hoping to not show it so early?
Yeah, I mean that build is it's a funny one, because when I started the last game, and I thought to myself, okay, how I want to win this, because I had been winning with mech, but I really wanted to to make bio work, because I really like bio. You
Okay.
remember the early days when I was just trying to spam bio even versus Protoss, because I just loved bio so much. You can there is a lot of micro potential, and the units they can move pretty quick, especially with the steam. So I just really like to do that. And about the build specifically, I remember not so long ago, I was trying to get games, but I was failing miserably at that. But some soul, had mercy of me. I think it was Wit of God.
Okay.
That he wanted to play some games with me. So yeah, I mean, I think he's about class 3, but he really helped me to shape up that build because I was just trying different builds at the time. Something I had to try, and I remember that I did this spammy Cyprian build, and it worked really well. So, of course, I tried to do that versus Krang in one of our practice games, and it didn't work because he had Sorius. So I just thought to myself, what about if I find the right timing? Because he used to make some lackeys first, then to prepare his expansion. And so I thought to myself, well, what about if I just strike at the right moment when he gets lackeys, but he's not getting Sorios yet because they are kind of expensive. So yeah, I just went into single player mode and trying to practice the build, the timings of the build with the computer to prepare for this, and it worked because I mean it felt like I had just struck at the right time. He didn't have any Sorios, and the couple of lackeys you can micro versus them pretty well with all the infantry, So I was pretty happy that build in particular worked.
Yeah, I mean, there's a strong chance that, it goes the other direction. And like I said, who knows what happens if he holds there. But it must have been a dream when, one of those Lakers moves off to the east instead of going back up the ramp. And it's like, oh, perfect. And even then, you kind of force the issue where you're moving up with the Cyprians to the mineral line. And then instead of, before your Cyprians get behind the buildings, which would have absorbed the shots, he ends up pushing up with his last Lakers before the next one pops. And you just pounce on it right then. Did you know you had won before that moment? Was there like a specific moment in the last game where you're like, I got him, it's over?
When I denied his natural, that's the purpose of the build, really, because I didn't expect him to kill him right away. But then that lack is just went astray, and I tried to micro to kill him fast because I knew if he holds in the rank with 2 lackeys, it will be almost impossible to go up. I would have tried anyways because I have the Ansil, and I could maybe absorb the first volley.
Yep.
But I wasn't really sure. He was producing a lot of military when I got into his base. So I thought to myself, maybe if I kill this wave of units that are about to spawn, maybe I win the game. So I just tried to kill as many Drolles as possible because, like I said, I wasn't sure if I was going to win. I think he had a chance. Maybe because of Cyprians are not so commonly used. They don't. Maybe not many players know that if you position your units behind buildings, the Cyprians can really do damage to them. But yeah, I guess I was a bit lucky. But I also think that I made that moment possible because, it was the last game. The pressure tends to rise, and I just went for a build that is, it has some risk, but it has potential, and maybe the opponent is not expecting it because, it's the last game. Maybe they are expecting that you are playing more conservatively. So I just tried to play mind games with that. And yeah, that's why I decided to pull the trigger. Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, hey, I think it's a great little storyline. It's always an interesting decision what people make. Crank had gone back to the well, so to speak, a more conservative opener for him. But obviously a situation where you go for something a lot sharper, a lot more aggressive, and you find that little gap in the armor, you're able to exploit it to great effect. And now you are in the lower final. You have another chance to run for the crown. You got to get past Hamster. There are some who think that your most difficult test, at least until the grand final, was here and now versus Crank. But how do you feel about going up against Hamster tomorrow?
Well, I have history with Hamster because in the first tournament that I participated, I remember that he beat me and he sent me to the lower brackets. And then I came back and beat him. But playing against Hamster for me, it's really stressing because you can't really prepare for what he's going to do. You have to go like with instincts and try to scout as much as possible. If you go out blind, you're probably gonna be dead, and I don't really want that. But it's not like Crank that you kind of know that you kind of know his game. But with Hamster, it depends. I don't know if one of the guys told a funny story about it. I don't remember who it was, but it was something like Hamster, maybe he wakes up a day and maybe he drinks a bottle of vodka and start playing.
Yeah, I think it was Hit 'em Up who said that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like that. Maybe that day he don't drink and he plays more conservatively, but maybe he went party and drink a lot of vodka and then he start killing everybody. So yeah, I think it's gonna depend more on him than on my gameplay, because I definitely think he has the chance to beat me, but it's gonna depend if he's gonna be at his 100% or not.
Yeah.
To be the decisive factor.
Is he maxing out the 100% on the chaos meter too, like you say, about exactly how he's prepping for the game? Some people wouldn't say partying or what have you as prepping, but for Hamster, I could see it. Well, he is a bit of a mad lad, and I'm sure he'll be, interested, because I think he thought initially, the initial schedule was for earlier in the day, but we have an alternative schedule for the match now that you have made it on through. And you are more available later on in the day. So Hamster is obviously it's going to be a little bit later for him, but he does seem to thrive in those, it's past midnight and his eyes are bloodshot and he's moving in for the kill. That kind of thing seems to invoke some unleashing of the beast within him. So maybe we'll see some crazy antics. With that said, given the scheduling, you are going to have to play against Hamster, and if you win, against Hit 'em Up right after that. So this is kind of the hardest possible run for you. The most legitimate run for a champion would be getting through the murderer's row of players you'd had to deal with. Obviously, Shopkeeper Dog, the revelation of the tournament, 5-game set. Now another 5-game set versus Crank. Who knows what happens versus Hamster? And if you succeed there, and versus Hit 'em Up, a rematch of the last time, which went to 5 games, who knows what happens there too? So I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting story, but do you have hope for the grand final? Hope for not just getting over Hamster, but getting over Hit 'em Up as well?
Well, at this moment, I think I have some chance to beat Hamster. But right now, I don't think I can beat Hit 'em Up, especially if I keep floating minerals. I don't know. Maybe I just need some kind of rest, but since the games are pretty soon, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to have everything in place, mentally and physically to face Hit 'em Up. I know it's gonna take all my skills to have a chance. I'm gonna try to do my best, but regardless the result, I'm just happy to be playing these games. It has been really fun. The opponents has been, they are a great challenge for me. So I believe that the better man will always win. If I win, well, I'm gonna be really happy. But if Hamster or Hit 'em Up wins, then well, that was because they are better and they deserve it. So it's all good.
All good indeed. I am looking forward to the result no matter what. I did not expect you to take the championship in the last time. You had to go through every single person in that lower bracket. Was theoretically quite powerful. Top Ramen, obviously a very talented player. Then, of course, you had to make it through Hit 'em Up in a 5-game set, Hamster in a 5-game set, and Neblime. You also took it in 5, even though that was a best of 7. Maybe a little bit more of a drubbing coming in from that lower bracket, warmed up and ready to go. But it was an unlikely story then for many people, and now we're talking about a very similar story. You can't count out the champ. That's the lesson I'm learning. And so the fact that you beat Crank despite the odds, maybe the odds are more even in your matchup against Hamster. Maybe we'll take a poll in the server for a little scientific experiment ahead of the next match. Ayud, thank you for your interview and sharing your thoughts. Congratulations on the win. And before we speak to Krankendau for his exit interview, do you have any final words to say now that you have free and clear and ready to go into that lower final?
Well, I'm sorry, Crank. I know we talked about this earlier, but it's time for me to reclaim what is mine. Maybe next time you can, try to take the crown from me. But it wasn't just this time. Keep practicing, man. You can do it.
I still was pretty sure Crank would be on for the whole championship, but we can talk about that when we hear from him. Ayud, thank you again, and good luck in your next match. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. GG's.
GG's. Let's see if Krankendau is ready to say a few words about his move. We know we can listen to his music as well. Mr. Krankendau, you have unfortunately been bested by Ayud64, the reigning champion. It took 5 games to make it happen for you. And I thought there was a couple of times there I was like, okay, he takes map 1. But surely the comeback is here. The fact that you take 2 in a row before it starts to turn. How are you feeling after the series overall? Tell me your impressions. How did it go?
I made a lot of mistakes, so and they are very apparent to me, very basic mistakes. So I think I did pretty okay, but I wish I did what needs to be done, especially in the last game. It was basically build order mistakes, so very, very bad. I shouldn't have taken that expansion so fast because without scouting, Zerg should not expand. And I switched the production of Shroud. I did Shroud before Overleth, and yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's already morning here and I'm asleep almost, but I don't know how that happened. Even if I switch places, I still shouldn't expand before my Overleth goes to his natural. So, because Terrence, he did like 5 production on one base.
Correct.
So. Yeah. That's the situation where I'm fully like I know that Zerg can't expand if opponent goes, we can say all in or unit
very committed
heavy,
at least, yeah,
unit heavy style. So that's a huge mistake, but well, I will improve. I know what I need to fix.
Okay.
So everything's fine. Eod is great player, and especially I was surprised on the first game on Radium. His build was I did not expect fast madrigals, so it was really hard. I thought, that I have little chance in that game, and my expansions were late in most of the games. So I need to improve on those things, and maybe next time I will have my grand finals, maybe.
It was really tantalizingly close to at least getting into that rematch versus Hamster, where I do always say there's preparation players, and then there's more players who are just kind of uncanny, and you actually need to feel them out a little bit. I know you've played tons of ZVZ versus Hamster, but when it comes to official matches, I do put you in that preparation category where you always favor that style of player on the rematch. And so, I mean, if you end up besting Ayud, who knows what happens tomorrow. That being said, it doesn't end up going that way. I do have a couple questions for you about how the games went, and you were already starting to talk a little bit about that analysis. Specifically about Radium, the starter. One of the things I noticed is that Ayud, really this is the first time I've seen Terran's do this consistently across the whole series, but it was a really good sign that he was doing it super early, or bad sign for you, is he was layering his deployed units, the Madrigals, the Phalanxes, they were split really far back so that a spread would potentially kind of fail to break through some of those critical pieces of his push. You can't even call it a defense, it's just this entrenched position in a spot on the map. And then not only that, but he was also like doing a pretty good job of, I don't know if it was intuition or if he scouted or he saw some kind of tell, but figuring out where the bulk of your forces were and pre-positioning a lot of his Strigas at tier 2 in that. And so that was obviously well after some of the early engagements had happened, where the Madrigals showed their face very early compared to other Terran builds that you've encountered. But I think this series really illustrated the importance of that setup, and how a lot of people have been kind of naysaying the Zerg and saying, oh, they just surround and win the game. I mean, just surround is a funny thing to say. It takes a lot of effort to do something like that. But I think you're seeing now the game evolve to another layer of that, where there's ways that the Terran can counter the surround by setting up their entrenched units, their deployed units, a little bit differently. Was that something you noticed as well as the Madrigals just existing so fast? Did you notice that he was doing that layered split? Because we saw it again on Blackwater, we saw it throughout the series.
Yes, people say that it's easy to surround and easy to play Zerg, but Terran units, they are doing pew pew pew. They are shooting. So if Terran micros and leaves the gaps, retreats, micros back a bit. Zerg melee units, the HP just gets lower and lower, and without even reaching the opponent. So the surrounds must be almost perfect, and the stutter stepping must be perfect, and reinforcements must be perfect. And I think Radium shows that, especially that mid-game fight shows that it's not easy at all for Zerg to kill Terran. Even, yeah. Well, my tier 2 and expansions were late, so that's another thing.
You were talking also about the fact that in that final game, you end up expanding a bit early. I also felt that, obviously the Ovaleth would have helped if it was earlier than the Shroud, because he would have been able to scout. But I noticed that build he was doing, where he was doing the very committed, 4 stockade, 1 star pad on one base. He even caps his ridge on one base, which is like, that's a real big indicator. He's trying to do something that requires a lot of resources early on and doesn't have an easy transition into an expand. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about how I feel like Vornath is a little bit better versus what he was doing, although you don't have the splash control for the bio. You can get out on the map comparatively. Did you consider going Vornath instead in Game 5? Or as soon as you saw the stockade, you decided it was going to be better for you to avoid that?
Terrans have I feel like they have so many options what build they can do in TVZ that it's really hard. I didn't plan to play Vornath Pond at all, but I thought that I will mix in some more strategies, because Vornath is very, very risky. Early Cyprians you can kill, but we saw on Quingoa Valley his early Savants, I think, just melts everything on pool pond. So that's why I'm saying it's risky, and that's why Lake is, I think, are needed, Zorius or Gorks. So yeah, Pond, I think I probably should have avoided that.
Fair enough, fair enough. It was something that gave you the ability to break out when it came to the first two maps, and even though you weren't able to translate it into damage on Kingwa Valley, you were still ultimately able to win that game, and I think a large portion of it is that, you had sort of cowed him into a more defensive spot. I think he saw how many units you made game one, saw a decent number of those units in game two, despite your attempt to hide all the Vorvs, and then said, I'm just going to defend. But I think that was a really tense moment. I'm sure you felt like maybe you're behind at that point, since he does move across the map. He cancels the hatch and outright kills it, I think, actually, because it had finished, or maybe it was just a cancel. But either way, it's a spot where it's very, very difficult at that point to try to keep to his scale if he's expanding at a good timing. But then that one ends up in your favor. And that's actually where you start your little, I guess you could say, your string of games where you end up taking that one and also on Blackwater. But we saw that ridiculously long siege line again from Aoud on Blackwater, and it almost was enough to absorb you. Now, the Remaxes would have been enough to finish him off after, but were you surprised at the outcome of some of those fights? Did you feel like you gathered more data about this particular matchup after playing a series like this and seeing, different compositions duking it out than usual? Because we don't normally see Cyprians. Madrigals don't normally come out that soon. Autocrats very early were interesting as well. And then, of course, you had to deal with, early Vorvs using those instead, which is another little flip, I guess, when it comes to the meta. So some interesting data, right, to sort of dwell upon. Like you mentioned earlier, you're learning lessons and finding things to fix.
Well, yeah, Eod showed a lot of variety in his play, in Terran play, so it's, of course, always useful. It's hard for me to get practice against Terrans. No one in this time zone, even Asia time zone, is Terran, so
yeah, that's right.
I can't catch ramen, can't catch shopkeeper dog, so it's really hard to practice. And these games showed that I need a lot more experience to not make the mistakes, because in the games where I was expanding at the correct times and drawing up enough, those games went well, and in other games with bad scouting and bad decisions, I lost horribly. So that's the lessons. And delayed tier 2, it's apparently really bad, because if Terran goes tier 2 pretty fast, then their composition melts tier 1 Zerg, so that's also another thing I need to think and figure out.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's definitely I think it's a tough spot to be in as the Zerg when you do need to have that really, really solid scouting, or you will be overwhelmed. There's still plenty room for changes in the meta, still plenty of room for people to find more things. And I'm, I have been talking a little bit about how I have a couple of ideas for changes in terms of the actual game. But I think this tournament is actually showing a really nice set of innovations from a ton of players, and also maps change a huge amount. I think the vetoes have gotten a very, very layered, and some players are really starting to think about, like, I need to get rid of certain maps, but I also want to get certain maps. And there's this concept in Counter-Strike where a team will float a normal ban, what they normally ban, because they think the other team will ban it or won't pick it, and they can maybe ban it in the second round. And I feel like that's essentially what you did with Serenity, actually, where you banned Brainstorm. In my mind, this is what I was thinking. Crank doesn't want to play Aoud on Brainstorm. He knows that Aoud keeps picking it. So Crank bans Brainstorm, and he leaves, Serenity up. You actually left it even later up anyway. You end up vetoing Near Impact instead. But I think stuff like that is really showing that people are taking it a little bit, they're thinking a little bit more deeply about it. So just to briefly touch on that, since the veto itself was so long ago, but you had some similar thoughts? You were trying to make sure you didn't see Brainstorm, and you didn't really mind playing against Aoud on Serenity?
Yeah, I think Brainstorm is a horrible map for against Terran.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, what Shopkeeper Dog against Eld, yeah.
Yep.
Those phalanxes that shoot to the natural through the cliffs are scary things. So, and low ground, no ramp to the main also for Zerg is very difficult, and short rush distance. So that's probably four bad things on that map. And another ramp near third, also very dangerous.
Yeah.
If
Especially
you're
with
not
deployed
prepared.
units. The phalanx
Yeah.
ranging you down from that area.
So I thought that's the worst map for TVZ.
Well, it's good to get rid of it then. Makes a lot of sense. And, you know, I do think Serenity is, I know it didn't go your way in this series, but I think Aoud specifically doesn't play Serenity that often compared to some of the other Terrans who are picking it super fast. And, you know, he hasn't played against a dedicated Protoss yet, so maybe that's why he hasn't picked it when it's up. But it is interesting to me that he decides to go for, you know, Serenity later on anyway. I think that kind of shows, well, he'd rather play on other maps. So not necessarily his top pick. So, like, normally you go up against a Terran, you fear that map, but makes sense to get rid of some of the bigger fish. Anyway, with all that said, we've had a lot of thoughts from you. I know it's very late. We've kept you up. I thank you very much for participating and for, again, like I was saying in the prelude, I don't know if you caught it, Hamster did technically all the way back in like Ascension 6, 2 years ago now, make it to the grand final in his first ever tournament. But you as an Acropolis debutant, this being your first time, I'd say by far and away, especially in terms of skill, you are the strongest deploying player, right? The strongest player who has just come out the gate swinging. And I think that counts for something. You also lock in top 4 with your win over Ramen yesterday, which means you're invited directly back into the next tournament. So even though that all sounds Pyrrhic in the face of defeat against Aoud, I want to give you one more time, give you your flowers, so to speak, and say very well played on your run, and I'm very pleased to have seen you participate. We hope to see you again next time around when we give you that invite to the Battlement stage when Acropolis 4 rolls around.
Thank you. This was an experience, tiring experience, but I'm happy that I participated, and I'm sure I'm gonna participate in the next one.
Hell yeah, brother. I look forward to it. Any final words before we let you go for the night?
GG's, and good luck to all the others.
GG's indeed. We will see you next time, Crank. Thank you for participating.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. And we do have to hang it up there. That is a wrap for the Cranker. And we will be going to a final round tomorrow. One last day as we get a little bit closer. We are going to have 2 more series of play in terms of tournament results that are recorded for posterity. But, you know, we're going to have another other match, a show match. Please be apprised. Tomorrow's stream will begin at around 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and it will feature the show match opening things up. We will see how soon we can start the lower final after that. I'm guessing it'll be around 4 p.m. Eastern Time, but it may be a little bit earlier or a little bit later, depending on availability. And then we will see the grand final. And won't that be grand indeed? Ladies and gentlemen, it was my pleasure to bring you this very exciting set of games. And as Elimination 4 has been punched in, and as we know the outcome now, all we can say is well played, and a big surprise. We didn't necessarily all think Aoud would make it happen, but Terrans stay winning. It was Aoud yesterday, it was Aoud today. I don't know, it could be Aoud tomorrow. It could be Aoud tomorrow twice. You'll have to tune in tomorrow to find out, and also see what we're cooking up for the show match. GG's, and that will do it for us. Peace.